Chapter 2199. Plop! The hot water in the bottle seemed to come alive in an instant. It suddenly drilled out and transformed into a ferocious python. With lightning speed, it coiled around Claire from head to toe. Water elemental riot? Seeing this, Dustless raised his eyebrows slightly. He suddenly remembered that something like this had happened in the original work. So that's how it is. Was it done by that chick Restia? Dustless pursed his lips and smiled lightly. He secretly cursed the willful girl. If she had any trouble, she could have come to him. However, it's not bad to use Restia's hand to teach this abominable girl a lesson. She's a slave to and fro all day long. Dustless quickly felt relieved and walked to Claire with a playful expression. Yo. What happened to our previously unparalleled Miss Claire Lucio? Dustless laughed gloatingly, not caring about Claire's green cheeks. You perverted beast. Your master is in danger, and you're still looking on indifferently? Claire loudly scolded. Has your conscience been eaten enough? If you say it's eaten by a dog, then it's eaten by a dog. I don't care anyway. Dustless shrugged indifferently. Humph, don't think that I can't escape without you. Claire no longer looked at Dustless and tenderly shouted, Scarlet, hurry up and evaporate these water elemental snakes for me. Oh! The fiery red cat's ferocious nature erupted. It bared its sharp fangs and spat out a large mouthful of flames. However, water and fire were two elements that restrained each other. It was normal for water to extinguish fire, but using fire to evaporate water had never been heard of. Perhaps some experts who had reached the peak of fire could evaporate water. But Scarlet was absolutely unable to do so at present. Poochie. Sure enough, as Dustless had guessed, the moment the flames came into contact with the water snakes, they were ruthlessly extinguished. Ah! At this moment, Claire suddenly screamed. This scream was filled with fear, anger, and shyness. TSK, what a beautiful scenery. Claire was out of luck, but Dustless feasted his eyes on her. The rampaging water element increased its power to bind Claire, tearing her clothes apart. Her snow-white skin was in full view, and Claire's soft moans that seemed to be in pain yet not in pain had a special charm to them. You bastard, are you really going to leave me in the lurch? Looking down at the towering Dustless, Claire wanted to bite him to death. Save you. Dustless curled his lips and said disapprovingly. Didn't you call me a perverted beast and even tried to force yourself on me? My innocence was almost tainted by you. Dustless looked at Claire with a face full of fear. He was extremely aggrieved, like a resentful woman in her boudoir, asking for a beating. What did you say? I forced myself on you. This sentence was like a ferocious attack, smashing Claire until she saw stars. She said angrily, Are you kidding me? When did I force myself on you? No matter how shameless you are, you should have a bottom line. Is that so? Dustless stroked his chin disapprovingly and continued to tease. You don't have to deny it, just admit it. As the saying goes since ancient times, beauties love heroes. Just admit it. No one will dislike you, and I won't hate you. After all, this is very normal. Normal my ass. Claire was incomparably depressed. Why was this guy so infuriating? Then I'll take my leave. Dustless shrugged and left with an indifferent expression. Wait, you're not allowed to leave. Stop right there. Claire shouted to stop him. Then tell me first. You were the one who shamelessly pursued me, right? Dustless blinked with a serious expression. Even Scarlet shifted his gaze. The current Dustless simply couldn't bear to look straight at him. He didn't have the slightest bearing of an expert, and was extremely shameless. Claire glared at Dustless. Her breathing sped up and she lowered her head in hesitation. You're in such a sorry state now. If Linslet sees you, shut up, I'll agree to your conditions. Hearing Linslet's name, Claire's body trembled slightly. She clenched her teeth and said, I was the one who shamelessly pursued Dustless. At least you know your place. Dustless smiled radiantly and said, Also, you're not allowed to call me a perverted beast in the future, understand? I promise you. Claire agreed to all of his conditions. She had no choice but to agree under his roof. She could only temporarily compromise with Dustless conditions. However, at this moment, She already hated the bastard who caused the water element to go berserk. In fact, all of this was Lysia's doing. She just wanted to take revenge on Dustless. Who would have thought that Claire would be so pitifully implicated? Since it's like this, I'll be merciful and let you go. Dustless didn't waste any words. He just wanted to teach Claire a lesson so that this little girl wouldn't be called a perverted beast all day long. This nickname was too conspicuous. After a long time, it might really be misunderstood. Boom boom boom. Releasing a bit of his aura, the water snakes condensed on Claire's body were instantly shattered and turned into water droplets on the ground. So powerful? Claire was dazed. After being released, she felt her entire body relax a lot. Thinking of her previous encounter, she said angrily, "Damn perverted beast, everything I said before doesn't count. You're still my diligent spirit." "Is that so? Since you don't give me any face, then I'll just go seek refuge with Linslet." Dustless's face was calm. "What? You traitor! Who allowed you to leave? Come back." Claire stared at Dustless's back and was really anxious. She hurriedly rushed over, but it was at this moment that an ugly monster descended from the sky. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2200. The purple monster slowly descended from the sky. It was a ball-shaped creature with a huge mouth that bared its fangs. It took up almost half of its body and spat out poisonous purple gas. The moment the monster landed, the sky darkened and was covered by its huge body. Ao ao ao. The monster released a hysterical force from its mouth, and the fluctuations turned into a destructive shockwave. The buildings below were all destroyed and disintegrated like rotten wood, unable to withstand a single blow. Claire's dorm room was also the same, instantly exploding. If it wasn't for Dustless' quick reaction and carrying Claire away in time, Claire would have been buried alive. That was close. Claire was scared. Looking at the monster in the sky, she was furious. Just as she was about to teach it a lesson, she realized that Dustless was still hugging her. "Put me down quickly." Claire was embarrassed. Being hugged by Dustless so openly, she wanted to find a hole to hide in. "Brat, you're not taking advantage of me, are you? I think you're taking advantage of me." Dustless rolled his eyes and teased, "You're hugging my neck and sticking to my chest. Who's the one taking advantage of who?" Claire was speechless. She quickly let go of Dustless's neck, her face flushed red. "Aha, even if I change the plot, what's supposed to come will come sooner or later." Dustless's voice came from the ruins filled with dust. Boom boom boom. A brutal energy wave exploded, blowing away the dust in the sky. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. At the same time, such a huge commotion naturally alarmed the others. The students of Alicia Academy all stared at the ugly creature in the sky with wide eyes. What kind of monster is this?" Claire's eyes widened. The shock in her eyes was hard to conceal. It was the first time she saw such an ugly creature. It had a huge body and a huge mouth full of fangs. "You don't know? To think that you're a student of this academy. The problem children of the Crow class really can't be looked at with the eyes of ordinary people." Dustless curled his lips, and then explained in a soft voice, "This is a magical fairy." I. Dustless's words hit Claire so hard that her face flushed red, and she felt even more embarrassed. She rolled her eyes and said angrily, "I'm purposely giving you a chance to perform. Do you understand? If everyone knows that you're a pervert, that you're ignorant, I, as the master, will lose my face. Thank you, but don't ask me about this kind of thing in the future." Dustless expressed his disdain. This monster seems to have appeared in the original novel as well. Dustless narrowed his eyes and carefully observed the magical fairy floating in the sky. He thought to himself, in the original work, the fairy that disrupted the duel between Alice, Claire, Linslet, and that brat Feng Zhao seems to be this monster. Speaking of which, wasn't this monster released by Lestia? In the original work, it was to help Feng Zhao awaken, but now it's attacking me. Thinking of this, Dustless smiled bitterly. So it was he who had dragged Claire and the others down. It seems that Lestia has quite a bit of resentment towards me. Dustless sighed and looked up at the monster in the sky. Spiritual pressure erupted from his body, and just as he was about to crush it, the rampaging power suddenly stopped. This is a good opportunity. This monster can be used as a touchstone. It's a good opportunity to test that holy sword. Dustless's eyes lit up, and the corner of his mouth raised in an imperceptible arc. This was a good opportunity to display the power of fairies. Everyone pay attention. Let this monster understand the serious consequences of invading Alicia Academy. At this moment, the members of the Knight Regiment swarmed over, led by Alice. She swept past Dustless and Claire, and stood closest to the magical fairy. Turning her head to look at Dustless and Claire, Alice sternly ordered, "This has nothing to do with the two of you. Hurry up and run for your lives." "You want me to run for my life? Little girl, this joke is too tasteless. Boring." Hearing this, Dustless laughed involuntarily and rolled his eyes. "You want me to run for my life? Are you kidding me? What did you call me?" Alice looked angrily at Dustless. "It's fine if this guy secretly calls me a little girl. But how am I going to stand if he calls me a little girl, in front of so many people? It's as if I'm Dustless's mistress." "That. Miss Alice, this monster is my prey. I hope that your Knight Regiment can make things easy and let me deal with this monster." Dustless couldn't be bothered to bicker with Alice. He was planning to use this magical fairy to test the power of the holy sword. How could he leave so easily? Besides, Dustless didn't think that the Knight Regiment would be able to deal with this magical fairy. However, Alice was displeased when she heard this. "This has nothing to do with you. Protecting the safety of the Academy is the responsibility of our Knight Regiment." Alice didn't back down at all. If the Knight Regiment were to run away now, how would they continue to survive? As the leader, she would become a joke. "You'll suffer if you don't listen to your elders. I want to see how your Knight Regiment will be beaten up." Dustless groaned. It was rare for him to bicker with Alice. The cruel reality would make Alice bow her head. This magical fairy was naturally just trash that couldn't withstand a single blow to Dustless, but to Alice and the others, it was absolutely an unprecedentedly powerful enemy. After all, these members of the Knight Regiment sounded mighty and domineering, but in reality, they were all flowers in a greenhouse. They hadn't experienced the destruction of storms, and could wither at any time in the face of a violent storm. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2201. Dustless didn't think that this group of immature knights would be a match for the magical fairies. In the original work, it was also God Fengzhao's small universe that finally defeated the magical fairies. It was obviously impossible to count on this group of young ladies. Let me try the power of that so-called holy sword first. Dustless squinted his eyes and didn't move at all. He tried to come in contact with that new power that he had never felt before. Then he muttered softly, "The holy sword that Lung Che forged into the Queen of Steel and slayed the demon god has now turned into a sword of steel. Give me strength." Boom, boom, boom. Dustless's right arm exploded with a rather shocking energy wave. The tyrannical energy wave spread out and attracted everyone's attention. They all turned to look at Dustless in shock. "This guy." Alice swallowed her saliva and looked at Dustless eagerly. It was her first time seeing Dustless release the fairy device. She was anxiously waiting. Not only that, but Claire also looked at Dustless without blinking. Her pretty face was full of anticipation. That holy sword should be very powerful, right? Claire was full of envy. She looked at the light that was blooming in Dustless's hand. It was as dazzling and holy as the sun. However, she felt very sad. After all, as Witch Ji, she didn't tame the holy sword and actually chose Dustless. How could it not be complicated? So powerful. Alice looked at Dustless with interest. She could clearly feel the extent of the divine power that erupted from Dustless's body. It must be the incomparably powerful fairy device. That's not right. After a while, the light in his hand disappeared. Dustless suddenly felt that there was an additional sword in his hand. However, the texture didn't seem right. If I remember correctly, this is the holy sword. But this weight, why? Sensing that the so-called holy sword was incomparably light, Dustless's heart suddenly thumped. He suddenly recalled Godfengzhao's encounter, and felt even more uneasy. He quickly looked up. Motherf ***, it's really like this. What a scammer. A genius turned into a loser in an instant. Dustless cursed loudly. The holy sword in front of him was just an exquisite dagger. It was exactly the same as the dagger used by Godfengzhao in the original work. How could it be a holy sword? It was more like a decoration for the nobles. Haha. Dustless's black-bellied smile spread through the clouds. Claire held her belly and laughed without any integrity. She didn't care about Dustless' feelings and mocked. Dustless, didn't you always say you were a genius? Why is there so little noise now? Is this your elven device? What a joke. Exactly. Although Alice's reaction wasn't as exaggerated as Claire's, she was still giggling. Dustless was speechless and embarrassed. He did not know how to explain. After all, this was the first time he had used the so-called elven device, and he did not know the specific reason. He could only bite the bullet and say, "Accident, it was all an accident. Maybe it's because it's my first time using it, so I'm still not familiar with it." You're right, but isn't your elven equipment a little too hilarious? This isn't a beauty pageant. If it was, I guarantee that your pearlescent holy sword. No, I should say your little dagger would definitely win. Claire attacked Dustless without any restraint. She had been bullied by this brat so many times, so she naturally had to take the opportunity to get back at him. Who told you that my dagger can't kill people? Even if it's a wooden sword, I can still use it to slaughter this fairy. Dustless's tone was very casual, but his great confidence made people involuntarily believe him. I don't believe you. Who are you trying to fool? Claire said disdainfully, looking at the little dagger in Dustless's hand with contempt. It looked pretty good, but was it a joke to rely on this thing to kill a fairy? Ayo. At the same time, the fairy floating in the sky roared wildly, and an oppressive roar resounded between heaven and earth. So strong. The expressions of Alice and the other members of the Knight Regiment all changed greatly. Everyone's face was full of caution, and their previous relaxed expressions disappeared without a trace. Smolf! Alice waved her large hand, and a sharp roar sounded in the azure sky. Looking up, a mighty and extraordinary eagle soared in the sky, and waves of clear cries came from its sharp beak. Boom boom boom. Under Alice's control, Smolf's wings flapped, and a violent storm comparable to a typhoon erupted from his wings. Boom boom boom. Perhaps it was because the force was too strong, but the tall and straight trees were all snapped in half. Even the sturdy buildings were trembling, and there were clearly visible cracks. The violent wind blasted the fairy's body, and his enormous body actually trembled inconceivably, and was pushed back a little. As expected of the great captain, the members of the Knight Regiment all looked at Alice with worship, their eyes shining with starlight. Even Claire's face was full of envy. As for Dustless, he was already ignored like air. Boom boom boom. The ferocious wind and waves slammed into the magical fairies. At first it was fine and the disgusting monster in the sky was forced to retreat. However, in the end, it seemed to have angered the ugly super monster. It opened its ugly mouth and roared twice. Ayo. A hysterical explosion resounded through the sky, and a formless shock wave surged out, and unsurprisingly, it affected Smooth. Roar! Smolf let out a long cry, no longer as spirited as before. After a few mournful cries, he was like a kite with a broken string. Under everyone's shocked gazes, he finally slowly fell to the ground. The great captain lost. The members of the Knight Regiment were all incomparably shocked. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice lost, who could stop this ugly fairy? For a moment, everyone was incomparably panicked. TSK, as expected, you still have to rely on me. This time don't embarrass me. Stroking the holy sword in his hand, Dustless stepped forward with a smile. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2202. The knights were all stunned. Alice was their spiritual faith. If even Alice failed, who would be able to stop this ugly magical fairy? Everyone panicked. TSK, you still have to rely on me. Don't embarrass me this time. Dustless stroked the holy sword in his hand and stepped forward with a smile. This monster isn't something you can handle. Don't meddle in other people's business. Seeing Dustless step forward, Claire quickly stood in front of him. If I don't meddle in other people's business, am I counting on you? Dustless asked with a smile, but in his heart, he had a whole new level of respect for Claire. This little girl looked a bit heartless, but she had a sharp tongue but a soft heart. In fact, she cared a lot about Dustless. Otherwise, she wouldn't have stood in front of him. Don't look down on me. Claire proudly stuck out her cleavage. Too small. Glancing at her cleavage, Dustless tried to persuade her. Besides, in your eyes, am I someone who likes to talk big? This. Of course not. Claire paused for a moment before answering seriously. No matter what, Dustless usually looked sloppy and unreliable, but in reality, sometimes his frivolous appearance was more like disdain. Do you want to die? Dustless's appearance attracted everyone's attention. Alice said seriously. Don't joke with your life. This has nothing to do with you. Hurry up and leave. I appreciate your kindness, but Dustless's smiling face suddenly turned bone-chillingly cold. He said coldly, I was on a date with Claire at the time. Her dorm room was torn down just like that. How could I have a foothold if I had just watched? Bah, who was on a date with you? Don't talk nonsense. It's just a slave elf. Claire turned her head with extreme disdain, but the joy in her eyes was hard to hide. After all, she had been alone for so long. Other than Linslet, her friend, the chances of anyone else standing up for her were zero. It was normal for her to be moved. How about this? Alice rolled her eyes, then moved closer to Dustless and suggested in a low voice. Why don't we work together to deal with this guy? With this, the chances of winning might be. I refuse. Dustless didn't even give Alice a chance to finish her sentence. He said softly, I'm used to being alone. Sorry, but I have no interest in working with others. You ungrateful stinky man. Alice stomped her feet in anger. She retreated with the rest of the knights and looked on coldly. Ao. As for the magical fairies in the void, they seemed to be enraged by Dustless. They opened their mouths and spat out a huge sound wave. Many people's ears were stinging and their eardrums were about to shatter. Quickly cover your ears. Alice hurriedly urged. Her entire body was dizzy from the assault of the sound waves, and her head was ringing incessantly. The world was spinning, and she was unable to find her bearings. Ah, why do you act like I killed your father? Dustless had an innocent look on his face. In fact, he knew that the magical fairies were actually venting Restia's anger. After all, it was Dustless that caused the relationship between Godfengzhao and Restia to break down. It was inevitable that they would be viewed as enemies. The enemy of this magical fairies was Dustless from the beginning to the end. Despicable bastard, it's because of you that my relationship with Godfengzhao broke down. In the darkness, Restia subconsciously clenched her fists the moment she saw Dustless appear. Restia deeply hated Dustless. This brat was too despicable. If she killed Dustless with her own hands, her relationship with Godfengzhao would be restored to how it was before. You really overestimate yourself. You're not even a match for me, yet you found such an ugly monster. It's not even enough to fill the gaps between my teeth. Are you asking to be humiliated? Restia. Dustless muttered to himself. His words were filled with confidence. Swallow this brat for me. First, bite that eyesore face of his into pieces. At a distance of a few dozen meters, Restia was extremely unlucky to see Dustless's despicable face. She was instantly enraged. Ao. The magical fairies that were affected by her hatred were instantly enraged. They opened their big mouth full of fangs and their huge body fell. Quickly dodged Dustless. Claire looked at the big mouth in fear. It could easily swallow a building, let alone a person. Dodge. You're also looking down on me. I've faced countless experts in my life. What does a mere beast count as? Dustless laughed dryly. At the same time, he raised his dagger-sized holy sword. It's over. This scene, in the eyes of everyone, was that it could not withstand a single blow. How could such a weak sword defeat a colossus like the fairy? It was simply an egg smashing against a rock. He was overestimating himself. Boom, boom, boom. Suddenly, a huge wave of energy erupted from Dustless's body. It was extremely intimidating, but very few people could sense it. On the other hand, the magical fairies floating in the sky seemed to sense a sense of danger, and were actually terrified. The magical fairies weren't as arrogant as before. Instead, their cries were filled with a trace of pity. At this moment, the magical fairies were still secretly controlled by Restia. The reason why they were afraid was entirely due to their instinctive sense of danger. Why would I need to use so much spiritual pressure to deal with trash like you? Just releasing a little bit of spiritual pressure is enough to make me think highly of you. The sacred sword that Wuxia raised was shrouded in a dangerous sharpness. It was extremely dangerous. Even the space around the sword was slightly frozen. Go to hell. With a casual swing of the sword, the tiny holy sword suddenly swung down, and an unstoppable slash swept out. Almost in the blink of an eye, the monster was swallowed up. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2203. Poochie. The dazzling silver light pierced through the magical fairy's huge body. A long and narrow crack appeared on its body, almost covering its entire body. Its huge body was almost torn apart. Ayo 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 ayo. The excruciating pain seemed to have stimulated the fairy. The fairy's life force was abnormally strong. Even though its stomach had been cut open, it still roared madly. It was even angered by the excruciating pain. Its roars were like thunder, spreading throughout the entire Alicia Academy. You're still not dead? Dustless frowned and muttered to himself. As expected, it's wrong to be merciful. I can't even leave you a complete corpse. Looking at the magical fairy, Dustless continued to mutter to himself. Anyway, it's painful for you to live. Why don't I set you free? When you step into heaven, remember that your benefactor is called Dustless. The spiritual pressure in his body swept out, and a ferocious and fatal move descended. Dowbreaker 90, Black Coffin. In the void, many black shadowless blades suddenly appeared out of nowhere. The magical fairy was like a black hole emitting a powerful gravitational force, instantly sucking in everyone's spiritual pressure blades. Poochie, Poochie, Poochie. The incomparably ferocious magical fairy was instantly cut into 8 pieces, its huge body miserably dismembered. Gulp. Ugh. Ugh. Many people couldn't bear this scene. Their lungs were in turmoil, and they couldn't help but vomit. So powerful. A group of girls stared at Dustless, tongue-tied. This so-called powerful magical fairy was like tofu in front of Dustless. It couldn't withstand a single blow from him. What's there to be surprised about? Being stared at like a monster by a group of people, Dustless felt rather uncomfortable. Especially Claire's fiery gaze, which was as hot as the sun, even wanting to melt him. You're very powerful. Claire suddenly moved to Dustless's side and laughed. She was also extremely speechless. Pa! Dustless almost jumped up. He turned his head and looked at Claire as if he had seen a ghost. He asked in disbelief, "You actually hit my butt? Is it my imagination? Or are you dreaming?" "You can hit me? Why can't I hit you?" Claire asked. Of course. Being questioned like this, Dustless was really speechless and could only stare. In his opinion, Claire was acting like a hooligan. Dustless was used to teasing others, so he really wasn't used to being hit back. Since you think it's very suitable, hee. Dustless laughed vulgarly. He moved closer to Claire's ear and said unhurriedly, "In the past, I've seen your body. How about this, when we go back to the room later? We'll be naked and you'll also see my body. This way you won't lose out." When Dustless said that he would be honest with her, he purposely bit down on his words. Moreover, his face was filled with evil intentions, making him look like the reincarnation of a pervert. "You scoundrel." Claire slapped Dustless, her face instantly red. Cough cough cough. Alice, who couldn't stand it anymore, coughed awkwardly and reminded them. This is a public place, please pay attention to your image. Dustless could afford to lose face, but Alice couldn't. You want to thank me, right? Just say it, I'll accept it all. Dustless said with a smile, looking at Alice calmly. Alice was speechless. She really wanted to sincerely thank him, but the words she had prepared were swallowed back by Dustless's words. I can't thank you enough. If you need my help in the future, just say the word. Our night group will definitely do our best. After saying that, Alice left, probably to report the situation to Grievous. I should also go back. Dustless stretched and turned to leave. Last time he had displayed his extraordinary strength, so Grievous also gave Dustless the treatment he deserved, an independent villa. Different levels of strength would naturally be valued differently. The stronger one was, the better the treatment they would receive. Where am I staying? Claire wanted to cry, but no tears came out. Looking at the ruined dormitory, it would take some time to rebuild it. The sky gradually darkened, and it was close to evening. That tigress Restia better not fall into my hands, or else. It was a mistake to let her go last time. If I had known, I would have forced her to sell me. In the misty bathroom, Dustless's mocking tone could be heard. It wasn't hard to hear the regret in his voice. Letting Restia leave was the worst choice. If he hadn't let her go, today's incident wouldn't have happened. After complaining for a while, Dustless put on his sleeping robe, dried the water on his hair, and walked out slowly. Looking at the living room, his gaze froze. Miss Claire, what kind of show are you putting on? Looking over, Claire was already lying on the sofa with her legs crossed. In front of her was a plate of fruits, and she was leisurely peeling them. What, this is my home? Why can't I be here? Claire was immediately unhappy. She put her hands on her hips and questioned. I am your master, so what's wrong with me being here? You have the ability to pester endlessly. However, no matter what you say, there is only one place to sleep. If you can sleep on the sofa, I don't mind. Dustless shrugged indifferently. Where's your gentlemanly demeanor? Hearing this, Claire immediately jumped up. A mere slave elf was so arrogant. You want to sleep on the bed? That's fine too. If you want to sleep with me, although I am at a disadvantage, I don't mind if you squeeze a little, even if I have to suffer a little. Dustless opened his arms, but who would have thought that Claire would throw her slipper at him in an extremely unfriendly manner? P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2204. What kind of person was Claire? She wanted her to sleep with Dustless? It was impossible to put the two of them on the same bed, unless Claire directly turned into a motionless corpse. Only then would it be possible to put the two of them on the same bed. I've already given you the opportunity. It's up to you to choose. Dustless shrugged nonchalantly and said magnanimously, I've never liked to force things. No matter what, it's up to you. Those who didn't know might really foolishly think that Dustless was a good person, but in Claire's eyes, he was extremely despicable and shameless. Other than sleeping on the sofa, what other choice did she have? It was impossible for her to sleep with Dustless. Want to take advantage of me? Dream on. Claire snorted disdainfully. Soon after, she thought of something and said disdainfully, Even if I sleep with you, a shameless bastard like you will definitely say that I took advantage of you and took advantage of you the next day. This little girl is getting more and more quick-witted. Incredible. Dustless laughed embarrassedly. Needless to say, Claire had guessed correctly this time. It was probably because she was used to Dustless's tricks. Claire was already used to Dustless's methods. Claire snorted coldly, full of resentment. Soon after, she said unhappily, Just you wait, Dustless, you better not fall into my hands in the future, or else. That's a pity. At least in this lifetime. Dustless shrugged and only laughed. What a joke. He had destroyed countless worlds. If he was dealt with by a mere Claire, he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself, saving himself from embarrassment. You want to fight me with just you? Dustless laughed dryly and immediately turned to enter the bedroom. As for Claire, There was no need to worry. This girl wouldn't freeze herself for nothing. Moreover, this villa wasn't cold, so there was no need to worry. After all, Dustless's display of strength had shaken Grievous. This mercenary which naturally wouldn't treat Dustless unfairly. Time flew by. In the blink of an eye, it was the morning of the next day. The two quickly entered their respective dreams. During this time, Dustless was greatly disappointed. He originally thought that Claire, who was unwilling to admit defeat, would sneak attack him at night. Who would have thought that she would be so quiet, waiting for a few hours in vain? The next day, the sun was high up in the sky. It was a rare sunny day. Strange, why does it seem like there's an extra person? Wu Chen, who was sleeping, suddenly opened his eyes in a daze. He mumbled to himself in a daze. He felt as if someone was lying on his body. Why do I feel that my leg is being hugged? Dustless stared blankly at the ceiling. His mind was clear, but he was also confused as he muttered to himself. He vaguely felt that his thighs seemed to be tightly hugged by a pair of weak little hands. This feeling is quite comfortable. I should be dreaming. No. Dustless suddenly thought of something and opened his eyes wide in his sleep. Looking down, the thick blanket covering Dustless was actually moving slightly. What was strange was that Dustless was sure that he didn't move. Clearly, it was someone else. Could it be Claire? No, this is absolutely impossible. How could she take the initiative to throw herself into my arms and hug me to sleep? This is too unrealistic. I would rather believe that Godfengzhao can defeat me. Dustless suddenly shook his head. If Claire wanted to sneak attack him, perhaps his head would already be separated from his body and chopped into 8 pieces by that violent Sundra girl. If that's the case, it can only be her. Suddenly recalling the fairy sealed in the demon-slaying holy sword, Dustless's mind flashed with a flash of realization. Let me take a good look at you, my contracted fairy lady. As his voice fell, Dustless suddenly lifted the blanket and threw it away. A girl with long snow-white hair immediately entered Dustless's eyes. The girl's appearance was young, and she looked like she was in her teens. She had big, watery eyes that were as bright as gems. The girl's expression was languid. As the sunlight fell on her body, she appeared particularly lazy. Her originally bright eyes suddenly became incomparably turbid. Good morning, Mr. Dustless. Extending her snow-white little hand, the silver-haired girl greeted him with a friendly smile. Although they were extremely unfamiliar, and it was the first time they met, the girl acted as if she had met an ordinary friend that she had not seen for many years. She was very familiar and natural. Esther? Dustless's eyes moved slightly as he tried to ask. You know my name? Esther's naturally naive little face raised a faint arc, but it disappeared immediately, as if it was natural for Dustless to know her name. If you can know my name, why can't I know yours? Dustless asked with a smile. At the same time, he rubbed Esther's little head. She immediately closed her eyes and lay on Dustless's lap with great enjoyment. Aren't you curious how I know your name? The girl's calmness was out of Dustless's expectations. He could not help but ask. Since I know your name, it's normal for you to know my name as well. Esther blinked her eyes and asked very innocently. You're right. We instinctively have a contract. There's a saying that goes, hearts are linked as one. Dustless softly agreed. Then he lowered his head and looked at the girl lying on his lap comfortably. Although it was the first time they met, Esther's little face revealed a long-awaited look, as if she had been waiting for a long time. Oh right, I have something to ask you. She suddenly remembered the awkwardness when she used the elven device. It was clearly a powerful holy sword, but because of Dustless's personal reasons, it became a decorative dagger. She was helpless and angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 reviews plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2205. Dustless, Kuan. Are you trying to ask me why I can't unleash my full strength when you use the fairy device? Tilting his head, Esther voiced out Dustless's confusion. That's right, I really can't figure out the reason. Hearing this, Dustless nodded. He didn't think that he was useless. He was a 10-tailed beast with almost perfect stats in all aspects. Immortal body, unlimited stamina, endless power, and many other excellent conditions. How could such a perfect combination be useless? Didn't you already tell me the reason? Esther didn't answer but asked instead. You already told me? Hearing this, Dustless frowned slightly. He lowered his head and pondered for a while. Then he slapped his thigh and asked in surprise. Could it be that I really can't control it well? This was just an excuse to fool Claire and Alice. Yes. Esther lowered his head seriously and said in a serious tone. You are indeed not familiar with using the fairy device for the first time. If you want to unleash my full strength, you will need more training. That makes me feel better. Dustless nodded slowly. The nail in his heart had been removed. Lying on the pillow, he said contentedly, Esther, hurry up and put on your clothes. Otherwise, if that devil Claire finds out, she will. Sorry, your reaction is too slow. I already found out. Bang. The owner of the murderous voice kicked open the bedroom door in anger. It was Claire, who was about to go berserk. Dustless coin, who is she? Pointing at Claire, Esther tilted his head and asked. I feel a dangerous murderous aura. It seems to be directed at you. Are you enemies? I feel it too. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He knew that Claire was jealous. He could feel Claire's anger from a few meters away. If he didn't give a reasonable explanation, Claire would definitely not let him go this time. Cough, cough, cough. This, clearing his throat, Dustless planned to explain before Claire made her move. Who would have thought that a sudden voice would directly interrupt Dustless's speech? Dustless, I heard that you fought a monster yesterday. You must be exhausted. I personally made some nourishing dishes. Eat them while they're hot. The person who interrupted Dustless's speech was none other than Linslet. However, the moment the master and servant stepped into the bedroom, Linslet was stunned. She saw that Estelle was not fully clothed. She was only wearing knee-length socks, and was lying in Dustless's arms in an extremely ambiguous position. Bad things are happening one after another. This time, even if I jump into the river, I won't be able to clear my name. My nickname as a pervert is going to be confirmed. Dustless rubbed his eyes gloomily. Suddenly, he felt two monstrous waves of anger directed at him. However, this was only the beginning. Dustless, you helped our night group yesterday. Today, I brought something to see you. The crisp and pleasant female voice sounded again. Dustless heard the owner of this voice and felt uncomfortable in his heart. He was 100% sure that the owner of this voice was Alice. The pleasant and caring tone was extremely horrifying to Dustless's ears. If possible, he hoped that no one would appear at this moment. Like Linslet, the moment she stepped into Dustless's bedroom, Alice was also stunned. Seeing Estelle lying in Dustless's arms without clothes covering her body, her snow-white face immediately flushed red. The scene froze for a few seconds. Claire, Linslet, and Alice, who had always been on bad terms, actually stood on the same front to deal with Dustless together. Smalf, Scarlet, Fenrir. The three delicate beauties actually released their contracted spirits at the same time and glared at Dustless covetously. The anger in their eyes was not concealed at all. Let's talk things out. Everyone sit down. Seeing the three women who shared the same hatred, Dustless's old face changed slightly. He never thought that the three women would join forces to deal with him. Pervert, I misjudged you. Linslet snorted ungratefully and immediately ordered. Fenrir, turn this pervert into an icicle and eliminate scum for the school. Smalf, you go too. Scarlet, you too. Claire and Linslet shouted at the same time. The three contracted spirits attacked Dustless at the same time. It was also at this moment that Estelle, who was lying in Dustless's arms, suddenly stood up and stood in front of Dustless without hesitation. Squat down, Este said softly as an extremely powerful aura swept out from him. Meow meow, ow ow ow, woo woo woo, the three contracted spirits whined at the same time. Then, under the horrified gaze of Claire and the others, they all obediently lay down in front of Estelle, their eyes filled with deep fear. What's going on? Linslet was shocked. At the same time, she was speechless. Her face was so awkward. She lifted her head and saw that Fenrir was as obedient as a puppy. It looked like it had met its master. Linslet had no face left. Not only Fenrir, but even Smolf and Scarlet were the same. Charge Scarlet. Claire raised her voice several times, but the sad thing was Scarlet ignored her. Alice was also shocked. She looked at Dustless, who was hiding behind Estelle, and deliberately said, "Dustless, are you a coward who hides behind a child, greedy for life and afraid of death?" This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. That's not bad. It's interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I'm so handsome, it's normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me as your mistress, you'll have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. He was living off a woman and still said it so righteously. This guy was simply shameless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2206. This was obviously a provocation, but after living for so many years, would Dustless care? Obviously not. This is not bad. It is interesting to live off a woman occasionally. After all, I am so handsome, it is normal to be fancied. If you want to keep me, you have to line up. Who asked me to be so popular? Dustless's answer angered the three of them. How could he be so righteous when he said that he was living off a woman? This guy was simply shameless. Don't think that I am hopeless. What I said is the truth. Dustless leaned on the pillow lazily and said with a smile, "You are still young now. When you grow up, you will understand what I mean. There are many things in this world that are beyond your control. The level you are exposed to now is too small, so you have a choice. You will not be exposed to that level, but when you grow up in the future, your sharpness will be worn away by time." It is so strange to be lectured by an old pervert like you. Claire groaned and looked at Dustless with dissatisfaction. Then she swept her eyes over Esther and stared at him, who looked like he was in his teens. She said with a sorrowful expression, "My slave elf won't even let a little girl go. She's still a young girl, right? This is too perverted. As the master, I feel ashamed." As soon as she finished speaking, Claire looked at Dustless with disdain, as if she had seen a fly. Exactly. Alice and Linslet were also disgusted. If it was anyone else, it would have been fine, but Estelle saw that he was only 12 or 13 years old. If he was not a pervert, then what was he? Seeing that the girls were really angry, Dustless hurriedly looked at Estelle for help. "Ahem. Estelle, hurry up and explain to me." "I am the master's." Estelle nodded slowly and looked at Dustless. Unexpectedly, the latter was speechless. This little brat is too naive. This explanation will only make the misunderstanding worse. Dustless did not know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly raised his head, and it was exactly as he had imagined. He could only continue to explain. "Her name is Esther. Her identity is actually the spirit in the Holy Sword, which is also my contract spirit." "The contract spirit sealed in the Holy Sword?" Hearing this, Claire looked at him in surprise. She had also wanted to tame the sacred sword. But who would have thought that she would almost lose her life? In the end, it was Dustless who had benefited from it. Even now, Claire was still brooding over this matter. Yes. Esther nodded in agreement with Dustless's words. The three women looked at each other. Only then did their misunderstanding of Dustless disappear. Their cold gazes gradually softened as they stared at Estelle's calm eyes. It was not difficult to see that even if she was not fully clothed, it was not Dustless who forced her. Consider yourself lucky this time. Next time, if you dare to flirt with other women, be careful that I will chop off that part of yours. Claire looked at Dustless with a smile and said creepily, "This is really terrible. Women who go crazy are the natural enemies of men." Dustless sighed, then smiled and said, "I'm fine. It's just taking care of a magical spirit. It's not enough to make me tired." Some people who wanted to please you spent so much effort to make dishes that were not effective. With her hands on her hips, Claire glanced at Dustless and righteously declared her sovereignty. "Also, Dustless is my contract spirit. Pay attention to your identity, Linslet. Ah. How long are you going to say such childish words? Claire. Linslet calmly stroked her golden hair and said disdainfully, stop dreaming. Do you think this guy will submit to you? You don't even have a butt or a chest. Whether or not you can get married is a problem. Linslet was obviously not to be trifled with. Her poisonous tongue was not inferior to Dustless's in the slightest. It is said that the war between men is bloody, while the war between women is erotic. Now it seems that this saying makes sense. Dustless watched silently and finally looked at Alice. There's no need to thank me. Actually, it was I who implicated you. Dustless's tone was apologetic. In the end, that magical spirit came for him, and Alice and the others were just innocently implicated. Alice was silent and looked at Dustless quietly. After hearing these words, her impression of him increased. This guy seemed extremely unreliable, but he was still clear about gratitude and grudges. He would not make trouble for no reason. Speaking of which, it would be best for your night group to pay attention to that brat Godfengzao in the future. Dustless looked at Alice meaningfully, then waved his hand and said, Of course, you can also take this as my personal revenge against him. In any case, it's up to you how you want to deal with him. Pay attention to Godfengzao? Hearing this, Alice frowned slightly. Everyone knew about the grudge between Godfengzao and Dustless. His words did not sound like a personal revenge. Is that guy very suspicious? Alice asked with a frown. Of course he is. Dustless nodded and said, Restia is Godfengzao's contracted spirit, and the magical spirit from before was instigated by Restia. The relationship between the two of them is like the lotus root and the silk thread. Isn't this suspicious? In my opinion, with all these reasons combined, it is normal to imprison that brat. All right, I will pay attention to him. No matter what, Alice was still skeptical. She took it as doing Dustless a favor. In any case, if it were not for Dustless, her night group might have been completely annihilated by that magical spirit. Hee, there will be a good show to watch now. Dustless's lips curled into a naughty smile. This was equivalent to helping Godfengzao establish a strong enemy. Alice was an upright and fair person. She would not allow sand in her eyes. Once she had the slightest doubt, she would investigate to the end. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2207. Whether it was despicable or shameless, it didn't matter. The winner was king. The process and methods were secondary. That was why the saying good people don't live long, while bad people live for thousands of years came about. With Estelle's help, the three girls nagged for a while before slowly leaving. Dustless could only accept it silently. Although they were very jealous, one thing was undeniable. From the beginning to the end, whether it was Claire or Linslet, they were all thinking for him. Therefore, Dustless sometimes tolerated the wayward behavior of the three girls. After all, they were all on the same side. Moreover, the complaints of the girls sometimes seemed like pure coquettishness. Speaking of which, where did Claire go? Didn't her dorm get torn down and she wants to stay here? After putting on his clothes, Dustless realized that Claire had disappeared without him noticing. I'm not sure. Estelle happily held the ice cream in her hands as if she had eaten honey. Her face was full of sweetness. This foodie. Dustless couldn't help but shake his head. He couldn't help but think of the night sword god Toka. He lowered his head and looked at Estelle. It seemed like he could see the figure of the night sword god Toka. That problem girl is really troublesome. Let's go out and take a look. Dustless sighed. In the original work, Claire went out alone to relax. In the end, she was schemed against by Celestia and almost got into big trouble. Therefore, Dustless decided to go out and look for her. Estelle, let's go. Without waiting for Estelle's reply, Dustless walked towards the gate of Alicia Elf Academy. Okay, Dustless Cohen. As for Estelle, she just happily hugged her ice cream and followed Dustless. With Dustless and ice cream by her side, she never felt lonely or lost. To Estelle, as a contracted elf, Dustless was her everything. Despicable Dustless, I'm just a slave. How dare you go behind my back and flirt with other girls? Could it be that I'm not charming at all? On the bustling street, Claire's desolate figure was extremely lonely. Is it really as Linslet said? That my breasts are too small? And Dustless, that pervert, likes big breasts? Claire's footsteps suddenly stopped. Staring at her negligible cleavage, she couldn't help but feel defeated. For the first time in her life, she doubted her own figure. Little girl, you seem to be very sentimental. Just then, a pleasant voice came from behind her. It sounded a bit cold and even hostile, but Claire didn't hear it because she was in a trance. Who are you? Claire turned her head abruptly. The person in front of her was wearing a thick robe. You seem. Claire narrowed her eyes. She suddenly felt that the owner of this voice was familiar, as if she had met him somewhere before. I know you. Although it was only a guess, Claire looked at the black-robed man with unusual certainty. I didn't expect you to have such a deep impression of me. Should I feel honored? But it's a pity that you are that guy's woman. We are destined to be enemies. The black-robed man sighed. Then he took off his robe, revealing a well-developed body and an exquisite face. Wuxia. Claire recognized this person's identity with a glance. Her hair stood on end and she said warily, Are you looking for me for revenge? Also watch your tone. I'm not Dustless's woman. Who would have thought that Wuxia would only laugh and say disapprovingly, I didn't say you were Dustless's woman. Are you admitting it yourself? You dare to trick me? Claire's pretty face flushed red. Her expression was like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, full of hostility. If I wanted to trick you, you would already be dead, wouldn't you? Wuxia smiled gently, her charming eyes like silk. She said indifferently in a soft voice, I really don't know where that stinky man got his luck from. He actually managed to trick a group of women into revolving around him. That's right. Claire nodded in agreement. You want to obtain your slave spirit. That guy Dustless? After a while Wuxia blinked. Her watery eyes contained a huge amount of magic, enticing Claire's mind. Bah, who wants that bastard? It's best if he dies. Claire said disdainfully. She couldn't help but ask, What method do you have? Of course it's great strength. In the end it's still because you're too weak. Wuxia pursed her lips and thought silently for a while. Then she said slowly, If you have strength that surpasses Dustless, would that guy still ignore you? If you have great strength, you can chase away all the women around Dustless. That seems to make sense. Claire nodded subconsciously. In the end, it was still because of her own strength. This was a hard wound. Claire's gem-like fiery eyes suddenly dimmed. She took the bait, seeing the absent-minded Claire. A crimson ball of light suddenly appeared in Wuxia's hand. It floated above her palm, emitting an evil light. The moment this crimson ball of light appeared, Claire's mind was attracted. This is a spirit? Claire swallowed her saliva and asked eagerly. That's right. Wuxia nodded her pure white chin and said, This is a mad spirit. It's far more powerful than Dustless's holy sword. Do you want to obtain it? These words were like a fatal blow to Claire's heart. Claire's heart suddenly trembled, and she nodded slightly. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2208. What Wuxia said was exactly what Claire wanted. She needed to be strong, not only for Dustless, but also for her other worry, her sister. Therefore, Claire needed powerful strength. Claire subconsciously reached out her small hand to grab the crimson ball of light. You want to use me to deal with Dustless? Claire suddenly recalled Dustless's smiling face, and stopped as if she had been electrocuted. That's right, that's my plan. Facing Claire's question, Wuxia didn't deny it and said coldly, In order to get me, that guy used tricks to drive a wedge between me and the god. Why can't I take revenge? Claire frowned when she heard this. In fact, she didn't have any objections to this matter. The nature of this world was that the strong preyed on the weak. Just like how she had always wanted to snatch away the holy sword that sealed Esther. It was survival of the fittest. If Godfengzhao lost, he could only blame himself for being inferior. Dustless has a better future than Godfengzhao. Although she was unhappy with Dustless's promiscuous lifestyle, Claire couldn't deny that 10 Godfengzhou stacked together couldn't compare to one Dustless. You're right, he's indeed very different. Restia nodded slightly. This was a fact and there was no need to deny it. But does this have anything to do with me? Since he wants to drive a wedge between me and the god. Is there anything wrong with me helping you deal with Dustless's other women? Back and forth. Claire opened her mouth and found herself speechless. Restia was right. If Dustless could deal with Godfengzhou, then why couldn't Restia deal with Dustless's women? This was very fair. This damn school is really big. Dustless ridiculed. Beside her was Alice. Alicia Elven Academy was too big and needed a tour guide. It was impossible to rely on Dustless alone. Thus Alice, who owed Dustless a favor, volunteered to help Dustless find Claire. Claire's older sister is a sore point in her heart. All these years, she's always wanted to sign a contract with a powerful spirit, but she failed every time. Now that she's disappeared, she probably went to find another powerful spirit. On the street, Alice explained to Dustless that Claire sounded very familiar. What the hell? I remember that you and Claire are enemies, right? After listening to your explanation, why do I feel like you're secretly observing her? Could it be that Linslet has possessed him? Wuxian asked in surprise. The smile at the corner of his mouth was full of meaning. Alice's pretty face turned red, and her expression was awkward. She stuttered, not knowing what to say. Hypocrite. Esther glanced at Alice and continued to eat her ice cream. I'm the leader of the night group. I need to understand the personality of every student in Alicia, and make sure that they're not bad people. Alice found a lame excuse to deal with it. This excuse is really lame, isn't it, Esther? Dustless said, curling his lips. Yes. Esther nodded innocently. Everything Dustless said was right to her. You. Alice angrily looked at the master and servant pair. Unable to vent her anger, she could only change the topic. No matter what. As long as there are elves, Claire can appear. I previously heard that there was a battle about military elves. No need to say more. Let's go there. Dustless's eyes flashed as he ordered in a serious tone. Contract spirits were summoned through a contract with the spirit user, but military spirits could be controlled without a contract. They had a wide range of uses, and regardless of the spirit user's ability, most people could draw out a certain degree of power from the military spirit. This was what Claire needed. In the original book, she participated in this competition. Okay, follow me. Although she didn't know why Dustless was so sure, Alice, who had no clue, could only nod. She didn't know where Claire went anyway, so she could only search one place at a time. On the other side, the competition about the military spirit. Even though Claire's previous performance was rather outstanding, almost all the enemies she met defeated her with valiant strength, and she was incomparably impressive. But as the saying goes, the bird that sticks out will be shot. Sometimes being too outstanding wasn't a good thing. It would cause jealousy. The other competitors who wanted to win the military spirit achieved their goal of eliminating Claire as an obstacle. TSK, this girl is very outstanding. Her spirit is also very strong. It's just that it hasn't been discovered yet. Celestia, who was secretly observing the competition, nodded lightly. Claire's strength was indeed not bad. But Dustless, that brat, what's so special about him that he can win the favor of so many girls at the same time? Are the taste of girls nowadays so bad? Obviously thinking of something bad, Celestia's pretty face immediately became unhappy. She cursed inwardly. She's clearly a sunny and strong girl. Why is she following that bastard Dustless? What kind of charm does that brat have? Celestia understood. No matter if it was Claire, Linslet, or Alice, they were all outstanding figures among their peers and could be called geniuses. But these people seemed to have ambiguous relationships with Dustless. Claire naturally didn't need to be mentioned. She had always treated Dustless as her exclusive property. If anyone else dared to touch him, she would turn hostile. Even her only friend Linslet was no exception. And Linslet was the same. As a noble lady, she actually often sent food to Dustless to eat. Sometimes she even cooked personally. Although the food she cooked was hard to swallow, anyone could tell that Linslet also had feelings for Dustless. Although Alice was a bit of an exception, she was very curious about Dustless. Once a woman was curious about a man, she was close to falling for him. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 2209. Bang! Accompanied by a dull explosion, Claire's frail body flew out and landed on the ground in a sorry state. Her pretty face was pale and green, without a trace of blood. She simply didn't have enough strength to deal with the combined forces of everyone. Not everyone was as heaven-defying as Dustless, who could single-handedly destroy an opponent. Moreover, before his rise, Dustless was actually just a small character. No matter what, everyone had a period of time when they were young and inexperienced. Dustless's faint smile suddenly appeared in her mind. Claire was absent-minded for a moment. That seemingly frivolous and ridiculing smile had a special charm to it. What kind of person is he? Claire sighed softly. Although she called Dustless a pervert, and a scum all day long. But no matter what, Dustless only took advantage of her mouth most of the time, and didn't make any aggressive moves. No matter what, I can't let that guy look down on me. Thinking of this, Claire stood up tenaciously, her unfocused eyes filled with determination and fearlessness. That kid's luck is pretty good to actually gain the favor of such a prideful girl. Observing from the shadows, Wuxia was rather jealous of Dustless's good luck. The more outstanding Claire's performance was, the more she felt that it wasn't worth it for Claire. In Wuxia's heart, Dustless was a heinous villain. Claire following him was like a fresh flower stuck in cow dung. The berserk elves are about to go berserk. Wuxia muttered to herself, her eyes widening in anticipation. Berserk elves were an extremely special type of elf. Although their strength was average, they were extremely vicious. Just like their name, they could cause the other party's contracted elves to go berserk. They wouldn't even recognize their own kin, and would even attack their own master. Awoo! Not long after Restia finished speaking, a heart-wrenching scream came from the arena. It was as if a demon had awoken, and was venting its joy. Hee hee. The show is about to begin. Celestia pursed her lips and snickered. Following her line of sight, she saw that the contracted spirits that had surrounded Claire had actually started attacking their allies. The scene had sunk into an unprecedented chaotic battle. What's going on? Is there an internal strife? Claire's face was also full of confusion. She didn't understand why the people who had previously allied to deal with her had suddenly started killing each other. We're all enemies anyway. This is a rare opportunity. Scarlet, give me. Claire's gaze fell on Scarlet. Seeing the strange state of the contracted elf, her voice became softer and softer until it was completely inaudible. Scarlet, you. To Claire's astonishment, the originally petite Scarlet had suddenly become dozens of times larger. Furthermore, the pure flames emitting from his body had clearly been contaminated, and carried a dark red evil light. This color was the same as the wild elf Celestia had given Claire. Aolo. Aolo aolo aolo. Scarlet's sharp roar was filled with endless killing intent. The flames burning all over his body became even more intense. The enemy he was targeting was actually Claire. Plop. Perhaps it was her first time seeing such a scene, but Claire was so frightened that she fell to the ground. Soon after, 2 clear lines of tears slowly flowed down, wetting Claire's little face. Scarlet, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have participated in this competition. You've become like this. Claire's nose was sore and tears flowed like pear blossoms. No matter how innocent she was, she knew that this was the doing of the wild elf Celestia had given her. Aww. However, Scarlet clearly didn't want to listen to Claire's explanation. His huge body leapt up and opened his terrifying mouth full of sharp teeth to bite her. Not to mention the frail Claire. Even steel would deform after being bitten by such a large mouth, leaving a few horrifying teeth marks. Ah. So you really did participate in this competition behind my back. What a troublesome little girl. A lazy, unrestrained voice suddenly sounded, deep and magnetic. Although it sounded unreliable and lazy, in Claire's eyes, it was great joy. Dustless. Turning her head, Claire found that it was indeed this face that she loved and hated. Despicable guy. Why did he have to appear at this time? Was he purposely waiting for a handsome opportunity to appear? The moment Dustless appeared, Celestia's smiling face suddenly froze. She glared at that gentle face unhappily, feeling like a thorn in her side. Scarlet went berserk. It's all because I listened to that bad woman. Am I stupid? I was fooled by her words. Ignoring the situation, Claire threw herself into Dustless's arms and burst into tears. At this moment, she just wanted to find someone to vent her grievances to. If you're wrong, you should correct it. If you're not, you should try harder. It's just a small matter. Also, who said that Scarlet went berserk? No, don't worry, Scarlet was just emotional. He'll still listen to me. Dustless softly comforted Claire as he rubbed her little head. Listen to you? What nonsense. Celestia, however, snorted disdainfully and muttered to herself. A contracted elf that has been corrupted by a mad elf already doesn't recognize anyone. He even dares to attack his master, let alone an outsider like you who has nothing to do with him. He's just asking for humiliation. However, Celestia didn't speak for long before she was slapped in the face. Walking in front of Scarlet, Dustless said softly, "Sit down." Plop. Then, under the gaze of countless pairs of eyes, the berserk Scarlet sat down obediently and became the gentle kitten from before. In front of my eye power, all contracted elves are pets. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus more chapters, 3,000 rewards plus more chapters, 1,000 reviews plus more chapters, 500 automatic subscriptions plus more chapters. Chapter 2210. Impossible. This contracted elf was corrupted by the mad elf, and should have lost its consciousness. Why would it obey Dustless, an outsider? That contracted elf called Scarlet didn't even obey the orders of its master, Claire. Why would it listen to Dustless? What the hell? Celestia's mouth was wide open. She was so shocked that a fist could fit in it. Such a shocking thing was too strange. The contracted elf was controlled by the mad elf, and as the master, Claire couldn't do anything about it. But Dustless, an outsider, just said sit down, and Scarlet, the furious elf, immediately regained its calm. Dustless Cohen. Those eyes seemed to be very special. Esther was also very surprised. She naturally knew that the mad elf was unusual, but she still underestimated Dustless. Shake hands. Dustless smiled again as the Sharingan emitted a scarlet light. Oh whoa. Scarlet let out another roar. Although it sounded very scary, like the roar of a beast, it still obediently stretched out its huge claws. Seeing this scene, Claire was so happy that she was about to cry. This is just a small problem. Don't worry about it, Claire. Seeing Claire's grateful look, Dustless explained casually, remember, in this world, everything has its limit, including that mad elf. Compared to my Sharingan, it is too weak. Sharingan? Aster was at a loss. He looked at Dustless curiously and asked, "Are you the one who used this to control Scarlet?" "That's right." Dustless nodded. "What kind of magic is that?" "Very impressive." Estelle looked at Wu Chun with a face full of eagerness. This. Dustless felt a headache. What was the Sharingan? How to explain it? The basic explanation was different. In different worlds, it was difficult to understand the power between them. Actually, it's mainly because I'm too handsome. This Scarlet is also a female elf. She was so charmed by me that she regained her consciousness. Sigh, what a lecherous elf. Dustless's face was full of trouble. Go to hell. My Scarlet isn't like that. Claire glared at Dustless with a red face. This guy was too infuriating. You don't believe me? Dustless's face was full of disappointment. Soon after he said, Restia has taken a fancy to me. She knows that I'm handsome and can attract other women, so she wants to use Claire to chase away all the women around me. In the end, she will get rid of Claire. Restia, this woman is really a scheming bitch. If she wants to possess me, she can just say so. But I can't blame her. It's all because I'm too handsome. I'm really a sinful man. Poochie. Celestia, who had been staring at Dustless, almost vomited blood when she heard that. She roared furiously in her heart. I like you? Do you think I'm blind? This brat's mouth is so cheap. How did he survive until now? I'll talk to Dustless now. Celestia took 2 steps and stopped. She suddenly thought of something and sneered. Brat, you're trying to provoke me. You want to lure me out? Dream on. There's still a long way to go. You have so many women. There are countless loopholes. After taking a deep look at Dustless, Celestia disappeared. That woman can't be a ninja turtle, right? She's so tolerant. Wu Chen frowned slightly. When he realized that Restia did not appear, he shook his head in disappointment. His words just now were meant to provoke Restia. His purpose was to make Restia come out. Who would have thought that this woman's patience was stronger than he imagined? Awoo. At this moment, Scarlet let out a loud cry. A dark red ball of light flew out of its body. Berserk elf. Celestia looked at the sky and answered seriously. It's this thing. That bad woman gave it to me. Claire clenched her teeth. At this moment, Scarlet had also returned to his original appearance, but he was lying on the ground half dead. His shiny fur was also dim, like withered weeds. It was obvious that the rampage just now had taken a toll on his physical strength, resulting in him fainting. Disappear, brother. Dustless blinked lightly. The evil ball of light was immediately wrapped in a black flame. Amaterasu. In the blink of an eye, the black, ominous flame swallowed the berserk elf's body. Not even a trace of him was left. Go back, Claire. Remember this lesson. Dustless glanced at Claire and saw her hugging Scarlet sadly. Your talent is not bad. It's only a matter of time before you become stronger. Don't borrow the strength of others. If you want to become strong, there are no shortcuts. I understand. Claire nodded her head resolutely. She hugged Scarlet tightly, not letting go. It's all settled? Alice, who had led the knights over, was stunned when she saw Dustless and Claire leaving the arena. Isn't this too fast? I don't have time to waste on other things. Dustless shrugged. Of course, this kind of small trouble should be solved quickly. Could it be delayed for a few more hours? That's right. It's fine if Celestia doesn't come out. But an eye for an eye. As the saying goes, revenge doesn't wait overnight. Dustless laughed evilly. If he was schemed against, he had to pay it back 100 times. Otherwise, wouldn't he have suffered a great loss? Celestia could scheme against Claire, so why couldn't Dustless scheme against Godfeng Zhao? This was very fair. Moreover, he could take the opportunity to stir up conflict between Godfeng Zhao and Celestia. P.S. 3,000 flowers as a reward, 3,000 flowers as a bonus, 1,000 comments as a bonus, 500 automatic subscriptions as a bonus. Chapter 22:11. In reality, Claire was just innocently implicated. In the end, it was a grudge between Dustless and Restia. Since Restia chose to shift the blame and dragged Claire into it, Dustless could also do the same to Restia and plot against Godfeng Zhao. Since you dare to fight with me, I'll play with you and see who loses their pants first. Dustless seemed to have thought of a good plan and laughed strangely. Gulp. Alice and Claire looked at each other. Although they didn't know what Dustless was planning, there was no doubt that the person targeted by Dustless would be unlucky. Let's go back, Claire. Thinking of a good idea to trick people, Dustless also had a sudden impulse. He spoke a few more words with Alice and gave her the task of taking care of the funeral. Then Dustless and Claire left. What exactly did you think of? On the way back, seeing Dustless's gloating expression, Claire couldn't help but ask curiously, but, although I don't know what you're planning, it's best not to go overboard. Dean Grievous still thinks highly of Godfeng Zhao. I know. Hearing this, Dustless nodded and patted Claire's shoulder. Leave it to me. I'll get back at Godfeng Zhao for what Restia did to you. And Claire's voice was as soft as a mosquito. This time, she didn't resist when Dustless patted her shoulder. Instead, a charming blush appeared on her pretty face. Today's commoner is really happy. However, Dustless, who was obsessed with scheming against Godfeng Zhao, didn't see this scene. Otherwise, his jaw would have dropped. Claire, who was hostile to him, actually had feelings for him? At night, the sky was dotted with stars. It was a beautiful sight. How can I become stronger? That's a big problem. In the broken house next to the stable, God Feng Zhao's eyes were blank and lifeless. It was as if his soul had been sucked out. Rather than calling him a person, it was more appropriate to call him a walking corpse that had lost its emotions. Coo 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 coo. At this moment, a strange cry suddenly sounded. Hearing this strange sound, God Feng Zhao's face suddenly changed. He quickly picked up the blanket and covered himself with it. Even so, he could still smell a bit of stench. What bad luck! Feng Zhao, who was in his bed, cursed out loud. He knew that the horse in the stable next to him had pooped and peed again. His face immediately turned green. Sometimes, when he was eating, he could even smell the disgusting smell. I have to be like Dustless and show my strength as soon as possible, so that I can leave this disgusting place and live in a beautiful villa. Deity Feng Zhao clenches his teeth and swears that he will live next to the stable, accompanied by horse feces and horse urine. As for Dustless, he will live in a magnificent villa, making Deity Feng Zhao envious to death. Clap, clap, clap. At this moment, the sound of clapping suddenly sounded out. It was extremely sudden. Who is it? How dare you barge into my house without my permission? You are Dustless. Deity Feng Zhao crawled out from the blanket with an unfriendly face. This was because the figure in front of him was extremely annoying. It was Dustless who had always made him suffer. Hee hee. Dustless laughed dryly and sat down. Looking at the shabby environment, he clicked his tongue in wonder and said, "How pitiful. I have to be with a group of animals all day. No, I have to be with a pile of horse feces and horse urine all day long. I say, Deity Feng Zhao, don't tell me you were a coachman in your previous life." Dustless. Deity Feng Zhao immediately went berserk. He looked at Dustless unkindly and said with disdain, "My place is too small to accommodate a great god like you. If you are staying here just to mock me, then please leave now." Celestial being Feng Zhao said in a righteous manner. He looked at Wuxia coldly. What a stinky word. After being with horse feces for such a long time, you are stinky too. Deity Feng Zhao. Dustless smiled faintly and completely ignored his expulsion order. He said with a smile, "I saw Restia today." And then? Deity Feng Zhao looked indifferent on the surface, but he was extremely concerned in his heart. He secretly glanced at Dustless. And then? Of course it was me. A god who came down from the heavens and thwarted Restia's plot. She was charmed by my extraordinary power, and couldn't help but throw herself at me. She even wanted to be my bed warmer, and have a bunch of children with me. Dustless talked nonsense with a serious face. Who are you trying to fool? In my opinion, Restia schemed against you and made you lose face. That's why you are here to find trouble with me. Deity Feng Zhao sneered disdainfully. You are right. I am here to find trouble with you tonight. Dustless didn't hide his purpose and said directly. Since Restia dared to scheme against my people, then it's not too much for me to scheme against you, right? You bastard. You bully the weak and fear the strong. Deity Feng Zhao's face turned black. This guy was too shameless. He couldn't afford to offend Restia, so he actually came to bully him. Too shameless. I am indeed bullying the weak and fear the strong. Are you going to bite me? Dustless retorted and immediately used his spiritual force to invade Deity Feng Zhao's mind. Don't worry, I won't trick you. I am only using your body to do something. What do you want to do? I warn you, don't mess around and don't ignore the rules of this school. Otherwise, that old witch Grievous will definitely not let you off. Being stared at by Dustless, Deity Feng Zhao felt uneasy. It was as if he was being stared at by a demon. His entire body was filled with disgust. Don't worry, it's not a big deal. I am just using your body to sneak up on others. Dustless laughed gloatingly. Deity Feng Zhao, on the other hand, was in despair. This was the rhythm of playing him to death. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:12. You want me to sneak attack others, so I'll sneak attack others? Do you think I'm an idiot? Godfeng Zhao sneered. Who would be so obedient? Retard. Idiot, you don't have a choice. Dustless was disdainful, and the mental force that invaded Godfeng Zhao's mind became even more obvious. Since this brat didn't know what was good for him, then don't blame me for being ruthless. My head hurts, it hurts. Suddenly, a painful voice came out from Godfeng Zhao's mouth. He hugged his head and rolled around like a madman. The pain made him sweat profusely, and the veins on his forehead popped out. Very uncomfortable, right? Dustless sat down and looked deeply at Godfeng Zhao. He said softly, I don't like to make trouble without reason. This is what you deserve. Dustless, you damn bastard. It hurts. Godfeng Zhao pointed at Dustless's nose and was about to curse, but who knew that his head would hurt even more? It was so painful that it felt like it was going to explode. You bastard. Under the intense pain, Godfeng Zhao's face became slightly malevolent. He roared. You did it, right? Despicable and sinister person. Reckless thing. Hearing this, Dustless coldly snorted, and the mental force that invaded Godfeng Zhao's mind became even more unrestrained. Aha! Godfeng Zhao screamed in pain again. His screams were extremely ear-piercing, hoping that someone would hear it, and quickly come to stop Dustless. This great demon king was too despicable. Go ahead and scream. Even if you scream until your throat breaks, no one will care about you. I forgot to tell you before I came, I set up a barrier around your house. No matter what happens here, no one will know. Dustless looked at Godfeng Zhao with a smug face. He winked at Godfeng Zhao and was asking for a beating. You. Godfeng Zhao sucked in a breath of cold air, suppressing his anger, and asked in a hoarse voice. Restia offended you, but you came to find trouble with me? What kind of logic is this? Then why would she want to take revenge on Claire if I offended her? Dustless asked indifferently. After being questioned by Dustless, Godfeng Zhao's angry expression disappeared in an instant, and he was left speechless. That's right, if Celestia could play dirty, why couldn't Dustless do the same? Was it too much for you to do the same for me? Brat, if you want to complain, then complain to that woman. After taking a sip of water to moisten his throat, Dustless said indifferently, If it wasn't for Lysia playing this trick first, I wouldn't have bothered you. You're just an ant. In any case, remember that all of this is because of Lysia. With that, Dustless started to torture Godfeng Zhao. My head hurts, let me go. Godfeng Zhao, who couldn't take it anymore, roared hysterically once again. He rolled on the ground in agony. His body was covered in mud and his eyes were bloodshot. Dustless's words kept echoing in his mind. Everything was caused by Restia. Lysia, why did you do this? You clearly knew that you were going to find trouble with Dustless. Although you could run, that madman would definitely come to find me. Aren't you harming me? It's all because of you that I'm being tortured, Lysia. Godfeng Zhao muttered, and there was a trace of resentment in his tone. That foolish brat. He took the bait so easily. TSK, what a waste of my feelings. To think that I prepared so many procedures. I didn't expect that Godfeng Zhao would have a gap with Lysia because of this matter. It seems like I'm overthinking. Perhaps their feelings aren't as firm as I thought. Dustless smirked in his heart. In fact, he hoped that Godfeng Zhao would hate Lysia and understand that the reason why he was being tortured was all because of Lysia. Just as Dustless thought, Godfeng Zhao also thought in this direction. Indeed, the heavens would not let down those who were willing. In fact, the feelings between Lysia and Godfeng Zhao were no longer as firm as imagined. Firstly, they hadn't seen each other for a few years, and time could dilute everything. Secondly, the most fatal thing was that a while ago, Dustless humiliated Godfeng Zhao in front of countless people, and the indirect reason was Lysia. At that time, Lysia didn't care about Godfeng Zhao's obstruction and kissed Dustless in front of everyone. And Godfeng Zhao almost collapsed. It's almost time. It's time to serve the main course. Dustless's lips curled up slightly, like a fox about to hunt, very cunning. What do you want? The sharp pain suddenly stopped, and Godfeng Zhao was overjoyed. The moment he raised his His smile froze because Dustless was looking at him with a playful gaze. Nothing much, just obediently become my slave. Dustless revealed his demonic Sharingan, and the ruby-like radiance was mysterious and noble, causing Godfeng to be absent-minded. Don't look. Sensing the terror of this pair of eyes, Godfeng quickly withdrew his eyes and looked at Dustless. He felt that he was about to sink into it, and his thoughts could be annihilated at any time. Still want to resist? Too naive. Even Lizia couldn't resist my eye power, let alone you. Dustless's face was full of disdain, and then he suddenly grabbed Godfeng's head. Their eyes met, and his eye power was activated. Obediently obey my orders, Godfeng. With a slight blink of his eyes, the majestic spiritual power replaced Godfeng's thoughts and occupied his mind. Dustless's purpose is actually quite simple: to use the Sharingan to change Godfeng's thoughts and world, making Godfeng think that other people are Dustless. Hee, the male lead is ready, we can go now, this time there will be a good show to watch. As soon as his voice fell, Dustless and Godfeng disappeared, and the direction they are heading is Grievous' house. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:13. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Under the night sky, two silhouettes disappeared in an instant. Only vague shadows could be seen. These two people were Wu Chen and Feng Zhao, who was being controlled. Hee, there will be a good show to watch later. Along the way, Dustless couldn't stop laughing as if he had eaten honey. He kept repeating the words, there will be a good show to watch. There was no doubt that this time, Grievous was also in Dustless's calculations. Although this Dean seemed to be pampered, her actual strength was still very strong. Therefore, Dustless wasn't worried about Grievous being killed. On the contrary, Godfeng was going to be unlucky. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. As Dustless was a frequent visitor to Grievous' house, he was familiar with the route, and easily led Godfeng to avoid the eyes and ears of the knights. This old woman is taking a bath in the middle of the night? His right eye suddenly turned into the Tensigan, and the scene in the distance suddenly became very clear. The sharp-eyed Dustless was surprised to find that it was in the middle of the night, and Dean Grievous was actually taking a bath. Cough cough cough. Dustless took a few glances and retracted his gaze. When he was about to control Godfeng to sneak attack, he suddenly stopped and thought, let's do it later. Grievous is taking a bath. If we rush over at this time, won't that little bastard Godfeng take advantage of it? Dream on. Therefore, Dustless decisively gave up the idea of sneak attack. It's fine to wait for a while. Time flew by, and after about half an hour, Grievous finally finished her bath. She put on her pajamas and slowly walked out of the bathroom. She even deliberately applied an unknown liquid similar to a facial mask on her cheeks, and lay on the sofa comfortably. Go Godfeng number 1, oh no, to be exact, scapegoat number 1. Dustless smiled gently, and immediately blinked his eyes slightly. Godfeng's body suddenly shot out. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Dustless, who controlled Godfeng, didn't hide his speed and invaded openly. Someone is invading? Gruaz, who was lying on the sofa, opened her eyes. Killing intent flashed in her eyes as she said indifferently, you've got guts. You even dare to assassinate me? At the end of her speech, Grievous's beautiful face was covered in frost. Even the mysterious item on her face was frozen. Bang! The black shadow kicked the door open, and walked in with an arrogant look on his face. It's you, Godfeng? Grievous's ice-cold face froze slightly. Soon after, she asked with a frown. What do you mean? Instead of sleeping, you came to my place in the middle of the night to cause trouble? Old virgin, why do you care what I do here? Who the hell are you? The Fengzao celestial being controlled by Dustless seemed to have eaten gunpowder as it said in an unfriendly manner. What's more, this pair of legs grew on my legs. Why do you care where I go? You, what did you call me? Gruaz's pretty face turned black, and her cleavage trembled in anger. She almost jumped out of her pajamas. Her beautiful eyes were spitting fire, and her fists were clenched so tightly that creaking sounds could be heard. Old virgin. Using this title to call Gruas, wasn't he tired of living? It was equivalent to declaring war on the death god. Old virgin, didn't you hear me? Do you need me to call you 10 more times? The Fengzao celestial being controlled by Dustless grinned, revealing its white teeth. With a crazy and arrogant look it said, Why are you glaring at me? Do you think I'm afraid because you're a tigress? Do you think I'm afraid of you because you're a 1,000-year-old virgin? Gruaz's face flushed red, and she almost fainted from anger. She forcefully suppressed the boiling killing intent and said in a hoarse voice, You're a student, and you've suffered enough blows from Dustless these days. I know you're mentally unstable, and I can understand. Now take back what you just said. I won't lower myself to your level, and I can also treat tonight's matter as if it didn't happen. It had to be said that if it were someone else, Gruaz might have already killed the other party. However, the Fengzao Celestial was different. A few years ago, the Fengzao Celestial tried to assassinate her, but unfortunately, she was easily defeated by Gruaz. Furthermore, she worked as a maid in Gruaz's house for a few years, and during this period, she taught the Fengzao Celestial a lot of swordsmanship. It was because of the accumulation of strength that the Fengzao Celestial was able to disguise as Liena Subble and participate in the Elven Sword Dance Festival, to become the champion and obtain the title of the strongest sword dancer. To a certain extent, the Fengzao Celestial was Gruaz's disciple, which was why this kid received a lot of special treatment. However, the Fengzao Celestial being was controlled by Dustless at this moment, so these words were destined to be bullshit. Old virgin, why are you wasting my time? If you're afraid of me, then say it. Come, take off your clothes and dance for me. At the same time, give me a smile. Don't look like I'm the one who raped you. If you really can't do it, I'll give you a smile. As soon as his voice fell, the Fengzao Celestial being controlled by Dustless revealed a charming smile. Fengzao Celestial being, You. Go. Die. Gruaz was furious. After being ridiculed by Dustless time and time again, even a clay figurine would vomit blood from anger, not to mention Gruaz, who was the dean with a high position and authority. Boom boom boom. A powerful divine aura erupted from Gruaz. This scale and range was stronger than anyone Dustless had ever seen. Compared to Gruaz, Claire, Linslet, and Alice were all weak. This woman. Hee, the fish has taken the bait. Dustless laughed in the dark. He didn't expect Gruaz to be so easily fooled. Actually, if one listened carefully, they would be able to tell that those words didn't sound like it was said by the Fengzao Celestial being. However, Gruaz was really angry at this moment, so she didn't analyze it. Anyway, it was the Fengzao Celestial being who said it. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 evaluation votes plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:14. Brat, it's useless even if you regret it now. I will make you unforgettable for the price of those words. I will make you regret living in this world. Grievous' tone was extremely cold. Every time she spoke, the house would tremble slightly. It was obvious that Grievous was really angry. Being scolded left and right as an old spinster, anyone would be enraged, let alone Grievous. Tisk, do you think your daddy Fengzao is scared? Do you think I'm that easy to bully? Fengzao, who was controlled by Dustless, glared at Grievous without any fear. He stared at her body and said, With your lousy body, I would despise you even if you were to be thrown to me. Other than having a bigger chest, what else is special about you? With your bad temper, your dowry is the entire Alicia Academy. I have to consider it. Furthermore, you can't be my legal wife. You can only be my little concubine. Any woman, even a saintess who had no emotions, would definitely fly into a rage after hearing Dustless's words. They would try their best to kill Dustless. But at this moment, Grievous was incomparably calm as she looked at Fengzao with suspicion. That's not right. My impression of Fengzao isn't this crude. Although that guy is dissatisfied with me, he wouldn't dare to speak to me like that. This tone, it's more like Dustless. Thinking of this, Grievous looked at Fengzao with piercingly cold eyes. Her clear eyes seemed to be able to see through Fengzao. This is bad. Seeing this, Dustless, who was secretly controlling Feng Zhao, had a slight change in expression. He cursed in his heart. Oh no, I went too deep and forgot about the important matter. But immediately after, Dustless smiled confidently and controlled Feng Zhao to continue speaking. You old witch, do you still remember what you did to me? That damned old virgin actually wanted me to be your maid. I've always remembered this matter in my heart. Feng Zhao. Deity. Grievous bit out every word. He was still doubtful before, but now he was sure that the guy in front of him was God Feng Zhao. There was only one person in the world who knew that God Feng Zhao used to be his maid, and that was God Feng Zhao herself. Luckily, I was quick-witted and almost exposed myself. Seeing that Grievous had regained her cold demeanor, Dustless secretly heaved a sigh of relief. With your current strength you want to challenge me? Grievous sneered and said in disdain. Even the previous Liena Subble was not my opponent, let alone the current you? What is your courage to challenge me? What is it? The Feng Zhao celestial being controlled by Wuxia retorted sarcastically. There's no reason. You just have to find a reason. Old virgin, I don't like you, okay? I feel that once my wings have hardened, I can break your arm. Is this reason enough? You. Grievous almost fainted from the blow. Since when did that seemingly shy god Feng Zhao become so eloquent? Dean. At the same time, the team of knights led by Alice had also arrived, and they stood respectfully beside Grievous. You guys came at the right time. Teach this kid a lesson. Grievous clenched her teeth and said angrily. As long as you don't kill him, beat him hard. Whoever shows mercy is going against me. Alice and the other members of the knights looked at Grievous in disbelief. They couldn't figure out what was wrong with this woman. Didn't she take care of Feng Zhao in the past? What are you waiting for? This is Dean's order. After being stunned for a few seconds, Alice didn't waste any time and directly ordered the members of the knights. In the end, everyone swarmed towards Feng Zhao. Hee, my goal has been achieved. Good luck to you, Feng Zhao. I hope you won't be beaten to death by random punches. Otherwise, I will be too lonely. Dustless smirked and released Feng Zhao's consciousness. Plop. Feng Zhao fell to the ground with a dumbfounded expression. His eyes were filled with confusion as he muttered to himself. Strange, I'm not in my own room. Why did I suddenly appear in Old Witch Grievous's house? And why is this group of knights glaring at me ferociously? What did I do? Feng Zhao's consciousness returned. He was indescribably confused. He couldn't remember anything that had happened before. At this moment he had a splitting headache. His head was about to be torn apart. Sigh, that's right. It's all that damn Dustless's fault. Suddenly thinking of Dustless, Feng Zhao's eyes lit up. He glanced at the expressionless Grievous and quickly complained. Old witch, let me tell you. Bang bang bang. Before Feng Zhao's voice fell, it was replaced by the sound of punches. The members of the knights beat Feng Zhao up. Although they didn't know why, the members of the knights all pressed Feng Zhao to the ground and beat him up. Anyway, it was Grievous's order. Why are you beating me? What did I do? Preposterous. You guys from the knights actually used your position to avenge private grudges. Also, that old witch Grievous actually watched me get beaten up. Feng Zhao, who was beaten up until he covered his head and fled like a rat, wanted to cry but had no tears. He didn't do anything, so why was he beaten up? TSK, your reaction is really slow. Until now you still haven't figured out why? You deserve to be beaten up. This is the result of going against me. You better die. Otherwise, I will slowly torture you to death in the future. Wu Chen smiled but didn't say anything. He took a few more glances at God Feng Zhao, who was violently beaten up. Soon after, he left unhurriedly. Grieva was currently in a rage. If she didn't cripple this brat God Feng Zhao, how could she be discouraged? Today the commoners are really happy. Humming a tune, Dustless left leisurely. His expression was leisurely and complacent, like a satisfied deity. Anyway, all of this had nothing to do with him. No one saw it. As for Feng Zhao's explanation, it was all a framing. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:15. About 10 minutes later, Grievous's room was quiet. Alice and the other members of the knights stood behind Grievous like javelins, while Grievous herself was like a queen surrounded by the ladies. On the ground in front of her, there was a miserable figure crawling on the ground. His nose was bruised and his face was swollen. He was breathing weakly and his face had turned green. His turbid eyes were filled with despair towards the future. It was as though he had been defiled by some evil person. His expression was one of despair. Principal. Alice's face was slightly hot. Looking at the half-dead Godfengzhao, she blamed herself. Although she didn't have a good impression of this guy, she couldn't help but feel a little guilty for beating him up to such a state. The few of you members of the Knights have really disappointed me. After a moment of silence, Grievous said something shocking. She said in an indignant tone, "You have been beating him up for more than 10 minutes. They are all superficial wounds. You didn't even break a single bone of this guy. Are you guys slacking off?" Principal. These words not only made the members of the Knight Regiment speechless, but the victim, Godfengzhao, also opened his eyes, which were several times larger than Tong Ling's, and roared angrily. "Damned old witch, you hit me for no reason and you still dare to." Bang! Who would have thought that before Godfengzhao could finish his words, Grievous would glance at him coldly and kick his face without any trace of politeness. Caw caw caw. Following a few crisp sounds, Godfengzhao suddenly felt a sharp pain in his mouth. He touched it and not only was it swollen, a few of his teeth were also broken. "You are so heartless." Godfengzhao glared angrily and cursed Grievous thousands of times in his heart. Heartless? Grievous almost jumped up when she heard this. She took a few deep breaths and cursed Godfengzhao's 18 generations of ancestors. "Why didn't you show any mercy when you scolded me just now?" Grievous clenched her fists tightly. She saw Godfengzhao's blank expression as though everything had nothing to do with him. She sneered and said, "Do you need me to remind you? Godfengzhao, didn't you just call me an old virgin? You even said that I could only be a little wife even if I gave up the entire Alicia Academy?" This. Alice and the other members of the Knight Corps were all stunned. They bit their lips, and their shoulders trembled. They wanted to laugh but didn't dare to. Old virgin? This Godfengzhao is indeed the reincarnation of a pervert. His ability to scold people is truly amazing. The members of the Knight Corps all looked at Godfengzhao with admiration. "You dare to talk about the dean like that? Even if you had 100 lives, it wouldn't be enough. Serves him right. The dean is right. We were too lenient." Alice shouted coldly. Originally, she was still feeling guilty for beating up Godfengzhao for no reason. However, after hearing Grievous' explanation, her guilt instantly vanished. Instead, she felt that she had been too lenient on him. Wouldn't such a person deserve to be beaten to death? Nonsense. Hearing Grievous' explanation, Godfengzhao jumped up and shouted angrily, "This is a fallacy. Although I hate you, I will never call you an old virgin. Anyway, this has nothing to do with me." Godfengzhao hurriedly cleared his name. He knew Grievous's temper. This old witch was definitely not a kind person. Especially with her furious appearance, she must have been thoroughly angered. Not to mention that it was not Godfengzhao who did it. Even if Godfengzhao really called her an old virgin, at this dangerous moment, he absolutely couldn't admit it even if he was beaten to death. Otherwise, he might be cut into 8 pieces at any time and killed to silence him. That's right. Godfengzhao suddenly recalled Dustless's back view and the conversation not long ago. Suddenly, it was as if he had grasped onto the only life-saving straw. He calmly explained, "This is definitely done by Dustless. Previously, he even said that he wanted to control my body to attack some people." "Is that so?" Then, Grievous's attitude was cold, and her eyes were as calm as an ancient well. She was as quiet as a pool of stagnant water, as if she had already expected deity Dingfeng to say this. "It was really done by that stinking brat. His eyes are very strange," Godfengzhao emphasized again. "I need evidence. Do you understand evidence?" Grievous lowered her head and looked at Godfengzhao, who was trying his best to explain himself. She said expressionlessly, "If there is no evidence, I can treat it as someone trying to frame you." Isn't that right, Alice? That's right, Sir Dean. Everything requires witnesses and material evidence. Not a single one can be missing. You can't judge Dustless based on Godfengzhao's words alone. That's not fair. Alice's tone was solemn. She didn't show any favoritism. I framed you? Hearing this, Godfengzhao only felt despair. He had been abandoned by the Almighty God. Clearly, it was that bastard Dustless who framed him, but now, the tables had turned. He had wronged Dustless. Deity Fengzhao's old tears flowed down his cheeks, expressing that he had nothing left to live for. It seems that there is no evidence to prove your innocence. Grievous' gaze was extremely cold. She glanced at Godfengzhao and finally sighed. Godfengzhao, from now on, you are no longer a student of the Elven Academy. Why? Godfengzhao was stunned for a moment before he asked in confusion. The reason is simple. You have been expelled. Was he fired? If this sentence was said by someone else, it wouldn't be intimidating. However, when it was said by Grievous, the dean, it was extremely intimidating. No one dared to doubt its authenticity. It was just like an order from an emperor. Once it was said, it would definitely be carried out at all costs. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:16. Especially that sentence. Which village are you from, Bumpkin? Dustless was seriously hurt. He never thought that one day, he would be treated as a country bumpkin. He couldn't help but ask himself, am I outdated, or are you city people too playful? You misunderstood me. Dustless was depressed for a while and explained, I'm just thirsty. However, sadly, Dustless was taken away by this chick before he could finish his sentence. Are you going to say that you came to buy juice to quench your thirst, and then you happened to see me being molested, so you saved me? Don't use this kind of old-fashioned plot. It will affect my mood, or else I will underestimate your IQ. Priscilla waved her hand with a look of disdain, while Dustless was petrified. Am I really too old to keep up with the times? Dustless's eyes flickered, and for the first time he questioned his taste. To be honest, I already have a suitable candidate to support. Dustless was too lazy to talk nonsense and said bluntly, as a candidate for the throne you should know Amelia, right? She's the girl that Roswald recommended. In fact, I'm her knight. Priscilla looked at Dustless in astonishment, and immediately said with a tone of worship, I really have sharp eyes. I felt that you're different, and it seems that it's true. You. Hold on. Dustless interrupted Priscilla and said snappily, you just said that I'm a country bumpkin from the countryside, and now you're changing your words? The speed at which you change your face makes me look down on your IQ. No, this concubine has a discerning eye. Priscilla's face didn't turn red, and the degree of shamelessness made Dustless blush with shame. Come here, Amelia. At the same time, Kayatsuki Subaru suddenly dragged Amelia over. She happened to see Dustless and Priscilla talking, and she also heard the content of their conversation. Therefore, Kayatsuki Subaru decisively pulled Amelia over, pointed at Dustless and said, Did you see that? That woman is also a candidate for the throne. Dustless, this bastard, may be jumping ship. No, it's impossible, right? Amelia's heart suddenly tightened, and she looked at Dustless with a little worry. To be honest, her mental support now was Dustless and Roswald. If Dustless defected, it would be a fatal blow to Amelia, and she may not be able to recover from then on. Impossible? Nothing is impossible. Kayatsuki Subaru exaggerated. She had been unhappy with Dustless for a long time. The two were destined to be mortal enemies, so she didn't have the slightest mercy to fan the flames. I tell you, any man can't resist the temptation of three things: money, beauty, and power. Kayatsuki Subaru's words flowed like a river, and she tried her best to fool her. If you don't believe me, you can wait and see. Dustless will definitely defect, otherwise why would he contact another candidate for the throne? You are also being used, Amelia. That boy is going to rob you of your money, and then abandon you. Regardless of whether these words were true or not, Amelia was still very nervous. How about it? Are you willing to join me? The Amelia you are talking about is the silver-haired half-goblin girl, right? She is a controversial existence, and you may be despised if you follow her. It's better to join me, and you can get everything you want. Priscilla promised a lot of benefits, including the money, beauty, and power that Kayatsuki Subaru mentioned before. All of them were mercilessly promised to Dustless. Because when Dustless attacked just now, she judged that the person in front of her was extraordinary at first glance. Sacrificing some benefits to win a powerful ally was not a loss for Priscilla. No, I don't care about these things. Dustless shook his head. He had lived for hundreds of years. What kind of beauty had he not seen? Which of the female confidants in the system wasn't a heavenly beauty? A beauty that could captivate birds and beasts. Money was meaningless to Dustless. As for power, it was ridiculous to him. In the past, every time Dustless ruled a world, he was the black hand behind the scenes controlling the whole world. The gods in the sky trembled at his feet, and the gods he slaughtered were countless. Even the whole planet was afraid of Dustless. Standing at such a height, what power did Dustless need? It was ridiculous. Is it ridiculous? Priscilla frowned and looked at the smiling Dustless, full of displeasure. Don't people live in this world for material things? Could it be that what I said was wrong? That is indeed the case, but there are always exceptions to everything. Dustless did not deny it, and looked at the girl with a smile, without any intention of ridicule. In short, this girl wanted to win him over, and did not have any ulterior motives. Our thinking is too different. I don't do things for any benefits, it's all on the spur of the moment, including this time helping Amelia to win the throne. In the end it was just too boring, and I wanted to kill time. Dustless said frankly, his face magnanimous. Fine, I have nothing to say to that. The corner of Priscilla's mouth twitched a few times. So Dustless helped Amelia to participate in the king's selection, because he was too bored. As for the matter of relying on you, forget it. I am very grateful that you value me so much, but... Dustless paused slightly, and said seriously. But since I have promised Amelia, I will fulfill my promise. Sometimes, people live not to enjoy the unprecedented material life, but to have a clear conscience. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 rating plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:17. A clear conscience? In the eyes of others, this reason might be laughable, but for some reason, Priscilla's heart trembled, and she suddenly fell silent. She suddenly realized that her vision in the past seemed to be a little narrow. Living in the world, one didn't necessarily have to pursue the supreme position of king. Just as Wuxia had said, one just had to have a clear conscience about some things, and it was enough to live one's own wonderful life. Moreover, since ancient times, emperors had always been alone, and their lives might end up in a dead end. Sometimes, giving up some things might be a little painful at the time, but there was always a gain, and in the future, there would always be more rewards. Also, Amelia's face suddenly appeared in his mind, and Dustless said softly, I have to admit, although Amelia is sometimes a little childish and naive, she has a persevering heart. I believe that there will be a day when she succeeds. In short, as long as she doesn't leave me, I won't abandon her. As for the identity of a fairy, it's really laughable. If those people who despise Amelia know about my past, they will probably think that the so-called witch of jealousy is a kind rabbit. Too gentle. Dustless said as if he was joking and serious. Others might scoff at these words, but it was an undeniable fact. After all, when Dustless was not very strong, he often used infinite Tsukuyomi to punish a large world, treating everyone as nourishment for his strength, and not letting any living creature go. Compared to Dustless, what was a mere witch of jealousy? In that case, I respect your choice. After a moment of silence, Priscilla smiled and said generously, If you need my help in the future, feel free to come to me. Then, without caring about Dustless's thoughts, she skipped away. This woman. Don't tell me that some nerve in her brain is broken? But it's good that you can get over it. Dustless had a strange expression. The girl in front of him changed too quickly, so much so that he was in a daze. Thud 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 thud. At this moment, Dustless suddenly heard the sound of footsteps behind him. He turned around and saw a beautiful white figure hugging him from behind. Amelia. Dustless looked at the white figure in astonishment. He lowered his head and saw that the person hugging him tightly was the weeping Amelia. What kind of good news is it? Why are you so excited? Dustless scratched Amelia's nose. He wasn't used to being hugged so tightly by her. His waist felt like it was going to break. I didn't mean to eavesdrop on your conversation, but I heard everything you said just now. Amelia's face was filled with excitement as she rubbed her cheeks against Dustless's chest. Blushing, she said, "From now on you're my family, okay?" Family? Hearing this, Dustless's face was indescribably strange, and he immediately waved his hand and said, "Let's talk about this kind of trivial matter later." Where did Roswald go? This is not a small matter. This is the most important matter. But Amelia stubbornly shook her head and seriously repeated, "This is even more important than the royal selection." All along, the only person who accompanied Amelia was Parker. Now that there was one more person, Dustless, she was very excited. What an innocent little girl. Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry about this. He just touched Amelia's head and nodded in approval. If they're a family, then so be it. Dustless didn't care. Anyway, in the future, Amelia wouldn't cause other people to starve to death. I suddenly feel that I'm no longer a person abandoned and hated by this world. Amelia hugged Dustless tightly and rubbed her face against him again and again. She even wished that she could integrate Dustless into her body. Slap. I'm such a king idiot. On the other side, Kai Yuemao, who was dazzled by the scene, was so angry that he cursed. He wanted to cry but had no tears. He slapped himself so hard that it bled. Kai Yuemao grimaced in pain. He originally wanted to catch Amelia in the act, but who knew that his actions would directly give Amelia to Dustless? Looking at Amelia's blissful face, Kai Yuemao wanted to kill himself. This was really shooting himself in the foot. Even his heart was smashed into pieces. Damn Dustless. This guy wouldn't be doing it on purpose, right? Kai Yuemao's face was gloomy. He was a little tempted by Priscilla's offer. After all, as she said, people lived for beautiful women, money, and power. In the face of these conditions, no one could be at ease. At least, Kai Yuemao was sure that he would be tempted by such a generous offer. But Dustless was like a rock. He didn't take the bait at all. No matter what the offer was, he wouldn't be moved. He didn't even blink. Brat, you won't die if you don't ask for it. You asked for it this time. I wasn't interested in Amelia, but you pushed her to me. TSK. What a good guy. Dustless glanced at the miserable Kai Yuemao and secretly scolded him for being an idiot. He asked for it. Help to clean the house, clean the carriage, and pick up girls. And, Kai Yuemao, I suddenly feel that you are not as annoying as before. Maybe people like you are born to serve as a foil to me. Wu Chen's words entered Kai Yuemao's ears. Only Kai Yuemao could hear it clearly due to the special treatment. Plop. Kai Yuemao couldn't take the blow anymore. He rolled his eyes and fainted. All his efforts were for Dustless. How could he not be angry? Especially Dustless's, "I want to thank you" expression, which made Kai Yuemao's heart beat faster. In the end, he couldn't withstand a single blow and fainted. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:18. Although this episode was a huge blow to Kaituki Subaru, the relationship between Dustless and Amelia had improved because of him. This was all thanks to the great philanthropist Kaituki Subaru. If it weren't for him, it wouldn't have been so smooth. Time passed quickly, and in the blink of an eye, a few hours had passed. The king's selection feast was about to begin. The most obvious thing was that the city was heavily guarded. The big shots, as well as many knights, had all appeared. Even powerful knights such as Reinhardt were included. Roswald, who had disappeared before, finally appeared, and his request was very simple. Amelia and Dustless went to the palace together to participate in this unique feast. Why don't I have a share? Kaituki Subaru, who had just woken up, was very angry. He found that he had completely become a foil, especially at this critical moment. Not to mention being a foil to Dustless, he didn't even have the qualifications to participate. This was blatant disdain. Boy, don't you understand? You are a groom. Do you understand? Pointing to the earth dragon outside the window, Dustless smiled and handed Kaituki Subaru a bag. Regardless of his livid face, he smiled kindly and said, "Well, I'll give it to you. After all, the earth dragon is our means of transportation. You can't lose it, it's much more useful than you." Kaituki Subaru's face turned green when he heard this. He only felt that there was a stuffy breath in his lungs. He was in a bad state and felt that he was about to explode. What made Kaituki Subaru most angry was that this bastard actually compared him with an animal. What was worse was that this bastard devalued him to the point that he was not even as good as an animal. But facing Wuxia, Keiichi Subaru was helpless. Not only was she inferior to him in terms of strength and skills, but she was also inferior to him in terms of wisdom. Wuxia even wanted to gain something without risking anything. Amelia took the initiative to throw herself into his arms. Every time he thought that because of his own calculation, Amelia took the initiative to throw herself into Dustless's arms, and her cheeks rubbed against Dustless's arms. Kaituki Subaru had a constipated expression and wanted to slap himself a few times. Rosval. In desperation, Kaitsuki Subaru could only look at Rosval for help, longing for the warmth this guy gave him, giving him a little hope so that his dreams would not always be shattered. "I'm sorry, Lord Pleiades." Roswald, who was regarded as a light of hope, shook his head. Although he sympathized with Kaitsuki Subaru's current situation, he couldn't help her. He showed a helpless expression and said, "You are just a servant. If I take you to participate in the king's selection, I will only bring shame to Lady Amelia. But Dustless, that bastard, is also a servant." Keiichi Subaru roared unwillingly with red eyes. After being repeatedly slapped in the face by Dustless, he had long gone crazy. When he mentioned Dustless, his face was full of hatred. Not to mention that several times during the reincarnation of death, the culprit was Dustless and he was killed by him in various cruel ways. Keiichi Subaru had long wanted to bite Dustless to death. Moreover, what made Keiichi Subaru collapse the most was that Dustless always did not follow the routine. For example, according to the script before the reincarnation of death, he should have beaten Julius, but in the real world, Dustless did not do so, and all kinds of plots were disrupted by him. No, Dustless is not a servant now. Speaking of this, Roswald's mouth twitched, and his face was full of displeasure. Looking at the smiling Dustless, he always felt that this guy was laughing at him. His face was a little ugly as he said, "Lady Amelia has recognized Dustless as her brother. So what, they are not related by blood? Does Dustless think that he can climb up the social ladder and become a candidate for the throne?" Keiichi Subaru sneered. "This is not the case, but the identity has changed." Speaking of this, Roswald also felt that the world was changeable. And then under the surprised gaze of Keiichi Subaru, he said respectfully, "Lord Dustless." "Ha!" Roswald's greeting of Lord Wuxia made Sinua Maolei's heart skip a beat. She opened her mouth wide in disbelief, and could even swallow a fist. Roswald called Dustless as Lord Dustless. Was there a mistake? Dustless was the housekeeper in his house, but now a family master bowed to the housekeeper and called Dustless as Lord, which was a big blow to Keiichi Subaru. Now the identities of the two were obviously reversed. "What, you called Dustless as?" Slap. Before Keiichi Subaru's voice fell, a cold slap greeted his face, and his face was suddenly bloody. On the right side of his face, a huge palm print was clearly visible. Even his teeth were loosened from the beating. And the person who did this was the grave and stern Wuxia. "You dare to hit me?" Keiichi Subaru was stunned. He did not expect Dustless to be so arrogant. He dared to hit him in front of Roswald. "So what? I just want to hit you." Dustless sneered and looked at Roswald and asked, "This bastard called me a brat. How should I deal with him? I am now Amelia's brother." "You deserve it." Roswald's eyes were fierce, And he also gave Keiichi a slap. The sound was very loud, and there were blood-red palm prints on both cheeks. Plop. Keiichi was so angry that he fainted again. In fact, Roswald just gave Keiichi a slap, which was already a light punishment. It was not too much to drive him out of the house, but Roswald still had some use for him, so he protected Keiichi. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22:19. After this kid fainted again, no one cared about him. Only Emilia, who couldn't stand it, took good care of him. After all, they were acquaintances. After settling the trivial matters of Keiichi, Dustless and the rest slowly left and rushed to the heavily guarded palace. The king's selection was imminent. At this moment, the palace was completely surrounded by knights. Members of the Knight Order were everywhere in the palace. Every one of them was as straight as a javelin. The security is very tight. Dustless looked around. Along the way, almost all the places were guarded. Everyone's expression was meticulous and strict. After all, this is the interior of the palace. The security is definitely tighter. This is related to the reputation of the kingdom. Now that it is the king's selection, I heard that all the members of the Knight Order are here. Roswald explained and looked at Dustless with a hint of warning. He slowly said, "Take note, there are many experts today. Don't mess around." Roswald understood Dustless's temper. If anyone were to provoke him, he would definitely not give them any face. He would definitely turn the world upside down. And Emilia would definitely be implicated. He was still counting on Emilia to slay the dragon after obtaining the throne. What would he do if Dustless messed up his plans? "You are making me sound like an ignorant child." Dustless couldn't help but roll his eyes. He was too lazy to bother with Roswald. He walked straight ahead and saw a huge stone door in front of him. It was engraved with a magnificent pattern, and there were a few knights standing beside it. Is that Lady Emilia? Emilia's appearance was too eye-catching. She was the only silver-haired half-fairy in the entire kingdom. The knights guarding the door didn't ask much. They immediately opened the stone door and allowed Emilia and the rest to pass through. Creak. The heavy stone door was slowly pushed open. An array of bright golden light shone through. It was as though they had arrived at another world. After passing through the door, a huge hall came into view. It was filled with people. The Knight Order and civil officials were standing in different positions. Emilia's appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. Is this Lady Emilia? As expected, he came to participate in the king's selection. I heard that it was Border Warlord who recommended him to participate in the royal selection. Who's the man behind him? I don't think I've seen it before. Clearly, Emilia was quite famous. Many people were looking at her in surprise, their eyes darting from side to side as if they wanted to see through her. Emilia was clearly a little nervous in the face of countless gazes. She instinctively took a step back, and her heel just happened to step on Dustless behind her. Emilia, remember, this is your stage today. There's no need to be nervous. You're a candidate for the king's choice, and your status is much higher than this group of people. Dustless patted Emilia's shoulder with a warm smile. This guy is here as well, and he came together with Lady Emilia. Could it be that Dustless has become Lady Emilia's knight? In the square formation of the knight's camp, an obscure gaze was cleverly concealed as it circled around Dustless. Seeing that the two of them were familiar with each other, it was full of doubts. This person had fiery red hair, and his hair was as messy as weeds. His appearance was handsome, and his fair face was cleaner than many young girls. At his waist was a unique divine sword, dragon sword. Without a doubt, the person who secretly muttered to himself was Reinhardt, who Dustless had met once before. A guy who dares to blaspheme the way of the knights. I will not let you off easily. Other than Reinhardt, there was another person who was staring at Dustless. It was Julius, who had a conflict with him before. Still can't forget about me? Dustless shifted his gaze. Although the knights were all wearing the same uniform, Julius's head of purple hair was too dazzling, and he stood out from the crowd. He was also full of hostility toward Dustless, so he could be seen at a glance. Everyone. Before this king's selection begins, please forgive me for being rude. Julius' hoarse voice reached everyone's ears. Everyone looked up at him, wondering what this guy's purpose was. He should be targeting me, right? Catching the resentment in Julius's eyes, Dustless said to himself helplessly, "Didn't they say that people who deeply believe in the way of the knights have a sense of justice? Why does this guy not let me go? Does he think I'm easy to bully? Lady Amelia, please forgive my rudeness." Julius walked to Amelia and bowed slightly to apologize. Then he bypassed her body and walked toward Dustless. His pair of golden eyes instantly became piercingly cold. "Julius, come back here." Seeing that this guy was going to cause trouble for Dustless, Reinhardt, who reacted quickly pulled him back. However, the latter was not tactful and forcibly broke free. "Reinhardt, this is a grudge between me and this guy. Previously, he blasphemed the spirit of the knights, which is an insult to us. Are you going to protect this sinner? The sword in my hand will never agree." Julius was very stubborn. When he said that Dustless had blasphemed the way of the knights, all the knights turned to look at Dustless in an instant. They were full of hostility, as if they had been specially rehearsed. It was very standard. "I said before, don't let me see you again, but you still came." Julius leaned close to Dustless's ear and said coldly, "As long as you announce that you give up becoming Lady Amelia's knight now, I can spare you this time." Dustless was not angry. Facing countless gazes, he was calm and composed. He asked curiously, "Can I ask why?" "Because I can't accept a knight who doesn't even have a sword to protect Lady Amelia. You are too unqualified. Also, you have blasphemed the way of the knights and trampled on my dignity. I can't forgive you for that," Julius said in a deep voice, clenching his fists. "P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates." Chapter 2220. Team Up. The girls were stunned by Dustless's suggestion. They looked at each other and saw the satisfaction in each other's eyes. It seemed that they were quite tempted by Dustless's suggestion. But wouldn't that be too good for you, kid? Perhaps it was because she had been with Dustless for a long time, but Claire's mind had become smarter. She quickly realized the problem. "Then you can catch all three of us in one fell swoop." Huh. Wuchen didn't know whether to laugh or cry when he heard this. Although he often took advantage of these few people, it was also on the surface of his mouth. He just felt bored and teased everyone to play. So far, he had not touched these few women. If he had to say who he was intimate with, it would be the Dean Grievous. "Don't take my kindness for granted. Since you think that I have other plans, then don't team up with me. I'm not interested in that competition anyway," Dustless said indifferently. After all, it was just a child's fight. "Not interested?" Hearing Wu Chen's lazy attitude, Alice was instantly dissatisfied. As a man and an extremely rare male elf user, you should know how to make progress. Learning is like sailing against the current. If you don't advance, you will fall behind. You must have a faraway vision, instead of wasting your youth in boredom. Dustless's expression was rather strange. Why does Alice's words sound like, "Alice, Dustless isn't your fiancé. Do you still want to be a henpecked husband?" The intelligent Linslet also felt the difference in Alice's words. She immediately exposed Alice without holding back. "Your family isn't suitable for Dustless. On the contrary, our family is more suitable. This matter ends here. You girls are really troublesome. Only the four of us are in a team." Dustless interrupted the three girls' argument in time. If he let them continue, he didn't know how long it would take. Alicia Elven Academy. After getting rid of the claws of the three girls, Dustless strolled alone in the beautiful academy. His mood was unusually calm. Dustless Kuan came out alone. Claire and the others will definitely be angry if they find out. Esther held the ice cream in his hands with a blissful expression. "Brat, don't talk nonsense when you're eating." Dustless rubbed Esther's head. In reality, He didn't want to wander around, but he was always surrounded by Claire and the others, making him speechless and conflicted. Claire and Linslet seemed to be the opposite of each other. Whenever they met, they would quarrel until their faces turned red, not to mention Alice. It was already a blessing from the heavens that they didn't fight. That's the best. I like quiet places too. Esther nodded her head like a little chick. Licking her ice cream, she complained. The three of them have almost snatched Mr. Dustless away. I don't even have time to spend with you. Esther, you really don't know how to be shy. Dustless rubbed Esther's head. Dustless couldn't look. Esther suddenly pointed at the entrance of Alicia Academy. Dustless also looked over and saw Dean Gravasse, standing in front of a carriage. Gravasse is welcoming him personally? Who's putting on such airs? This is interesting. Out of curiosity, Dustless also walked over. Since he had nothing to do, he might as well join in the fun and kill some time. Oh right, could it be that the little girl is here? If I think about it carefully, it should be around this time. And she's here for Godfingzao. Dustless lowered his head and pondered. An exquisite-looking girl appeared in his mind. She had a head of beautiful purple hair, and an extremely majestic cleavage. She was not inferior to Gravasse at all. Moreover, she had a noble and refined temperament, like a beautiful budding flower. This person was Fianna Le Oldija. Dean, long time no see. How are you? A pleasant voice came from the front. Dustless also subconsciously raised his head. As expected, he guessed correctly. A girl with long purple hair personally greeted Gravasse. Princess, you're too polite. Gravasse just nodded slightly. When she was about to speak, she suddenly saw Dustless leisurely walking over. She immediately frowned and pondered. This kid is here again? I hope he won't cause trouble for me. Princess, huh? Fianna's eyes dimmed a little. A bitter smile flashed across her eyes. This title was too sarcastic to her. After all, it was all in the past. Dean, I heard that a male elf called Godfingzao came to the academy a few days ago. Can you bring me to see him? Fianna was indeed someone who had an affair with Godfingzao. She immediately thought of the young man that she had been thinking about day and night. For a moment, she was a little absent-minded, as if she was thinking of the past. A gentle smile appeared on her face. This is so unfair. That brat, where did his charm come from to make people fall for him? It's all the main character aura. Dustless, who had rushed over, was speechless. Of all things to hear. Why did she have to hear about that brat's romantic debt? Miss, you might not know. That Godfingzao is simply a scum, a pervert, and a pervert. Without waiting for Gravasse to explain, Dustless directly opened his mouth, and used all the words that Claire used to scold him. He raised his voice and said, that little tortoise called Godfingzao did all kinds of bad things and was extremely shameless. In the end he was expelled because he scolded Dean. Little tortoise? Hearing Dustless calling Godfingzao that, Gravasse didn't know whether to laugh or cry. She caught the evil smile in his eyes, and could only silently mourn for Godfingzao in her heart. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Oh. Chapter 22-21. Who are you? Fianna raised her nose slightly and looked at Dustless with extreme dissatisfaction. Although she didn't know where this guy came from, hearing that the person she liked was insulted, she was instantly unhappy. Although men were sometimes extremely protective, women were no exception. Especially when her lover was insulted by an inexplicable guy, she naturally wouldn't let Dustless off easily. Especially since Fianna had yearned for Godfingzao day and night for several years. Now that Dustless dared to call Godfingzao a little turtle egg, how could Fianna ignore it? Obviously it was impossible. Next time I hear you say bad things about him, I definitely won't let you off. Fianna's beautiful eyes opened slightly as she stared at Dustless. Her tone was extremely unfriendly, and she even clenched her fist as if to warn him. Even if it wasn't because of Grievous, she had already started to beat Dustless up. Won't let me off? That's interesting, but people who dare to talk to me like that have either turned into a skeleton or simply become my person, Dustless said with a faint smile. Become your person? Fianna was stunned when she heard that, and immediately understood. Her face was full of disgust. So you're gay. No wonder you care so much about God Fengzhao. Are you afraid that I'll snatch him away? Ha ha ha. At the end, Fianna laughed delicately. Bullshit. Dustless's old face darkened and he scolded. Of course I'll kill all the men. If it's a woman, if she's sincere, I don't mind taking in a bed-warming maid, such as you. You. How dare you? Fianna looked coldly at Dustless. Dustless was the first person who dared to talk to her like that. Hearing that, Dustless just smiled. Looking at the angry Fianna, he gradually became interested. Miss, I want to ask how you plan to deal with me? I'm a person who doesn't know how to talk, and I'm extremely annoying. If you have any dissatisfaction, don't be merciful. Just beat me up, but I'll definitely resist. You. Fianna opened her mouth wide and looked at Dustless in disbelief. It was the first time she had seen such a strange person. How dare you? Fianna was stunned, but the housekeeper who was driving the carriage for her couldn't stand it anymore. He said coldly, Where did this brat come from? Hurry up and scram. Without even looking at him, Dustless said coldly, do you know who I am? Fianna coldly looked at Dustless, then looked at Grievous with hostility and sneered. Dean, are the students of Alicia Elven Academy so ill-mannered? This. Grievous frowned and was a little dissatisfied with Fianna. She couldn't possibly categorize all the students of the Elven Academy as shameless just because of Dustless, right? Are you trying to say that I'm shameless? That's right, I'm that shameless. What can you do to me? Dustless asked casually. You're invincible. Fianna's eyes widened. This bastard took in all the good and bad words. I can see it now. You even dare to lay your hands on such a young girl. What a scumbag. Looking at Estelle who was beside Dustless, Fianna loudly mocked. Huh. Dustless was confused. He followed Fianna's gaze and looked at Estelle. He was speechless. People say that girls with big breasts have no brains. I didn't believe it before, but now I do. All the nutrients in your brain have grown to your breasts. No wonder you're so stupid. Sigh. Pfft. Even with Headmistress Gruaz's temperament, she couldn't help but laugh out loud. She rolled her eyes at Dustless, clearly implying that he was so good at teasing others. Where did he learn this from? You this bastard. Fianna was angry. Her little face was red from Dustless's words. Even her breathing became heavy. All right, let's stop here. Follow me to the academy first. We'll talk about other things later, Grievous said softly. It would be a tragedy if they fought here. Tisk. Dustless curled his lips. He naturally understood that Grievous was giving Fianna a way out. Let's wait and see. I'll make sure you never forget me. Fianna took a deep look at Dustless. It was as if she wanted to remember this face forever. There's no need for the future. If you have time, you can come to my dorm now. I guarantee that you'll hate me for the rest of your life. Dustless was afraid that Fianna couldn't understand what he meant. The veins on Fianna's forehead bulged. If Grievous didn't pull her away, she would have flipped out on the spot. This bastard was too arrogant. It was the first time in her life that someone dared to ridicule her so unscrupulously. Dustless. Kuan will definitely find trouble with her again, Estelle said thoughtfully. Why? Dustless glanced at Estelle and asked with a smile. You can't bear to look at anything that's related to Fengzhao celestial being. This is a common occurrence, Esther said seriously, as if he was used to it. Is that so? Dustless stopped in his tracks. He touched his chin thoughtfully and then nodded slightly. It seemed like that was indeed the case. That's right. I remember Claire mentioned that the team needed 5 people. Why don't we pull this proud princess in? Dustless's lips curled up slightly, looking extremely evil. Why did you choose her? Estelle asked with a frown. It's simple. It's because this girl has feelings for Fengzhao. I want her to join the team and torture Fengzhao together. Lovers becoming enemies. This is really interesting. Dustless smiled evilly. That makes sense. Estelle nodded innocently. Unknowingly, She had been led astray by Dustless. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-22. The scene was incomparably stifling. No one had thought that a solemn king selection would end up in a mess because of Dustless's relationship. Thump. 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 Ferret. Dustless's eyes rippled. He was not surprised by Ferret's appearance, but the brat behind him pissed him off. Kaiwa Subaru? You stinking brat, you're really haunting me. Did you come here to embarrass yourself? Seeing the cowering Keichu Subaru behind Ferret, Dustless couldn't help but frown. This brat was really not someone easy to deal with. In order to pursue Amelia, he was also going all out. Why didn't they fight? Kaiwa Subaru was conflicted when he saw the oppressive atmosphere. The reason was that this was not part of his backtracking storyline. He still clearly remembered that after Dustless and Amelia came to the palace together, because someone insulted Amelia, Dustless got rid of all the knights and nobles in one fell swoop. It was also because of this incident that Amelia felt that Dustless was a bloodthirsty person and became much colder to him. After all, Amelia was still a pure and kind girl. Kaiwa Subaru rushed here because after Dustless's massacre, Amelia felt that he was a stranger. At this time, Amelia was at her weakest and he might be able to take advantage of her weakness. But why are these bastards still alive? Kaiwa Subaru was frustrated when he thought of this. He felt that Death Return was a rubbish skill. Things in the real world and backtracking were always very different. Brother, we meet again. Ferret smiled brightly when he saw Dustless. After all, if it was not for Dustless who saved her when she was besieged by Gut Hunter, Ilusa, she and Lord Rum would have been dead by now. Dustless smiled and nodded. He walked up to Kaiwa Subaru and said coldly, Brat, why are you here as a servant? Go back and feed the horses. It's none of your business. Dustless was fine when he did not speak, but Kaiwa Subaru was furious. He said unkindly, You bastard. How dare you hold back when Amelia was being humiliated? Are you still a man? If I were you, I would kill them all and wash Amelia's. Kaiwa Subaru was filled with hatred. If Dustless Amelia decided to go on a killing Amelia would not be able to take it. Amelia. Keichu Subaru laughed sinisterly. As long as Wuchun and Amelia fell out, he could take advantage of the opportunity to snatch Amelia's charcoal back. I want to thank you. You really pointed out the right path for me. Dustless Subaru was enlightened. He looked at Kaiwa Subaru with gratitude. Don't thank me. If you really want to thank me, then kill these bastards. Kaiwa Subaru looked generous, but his eyes were full of gloating. No. I think you misunderstood me. Dustless Subaru shook his finger and said softly, Before you asked me to kill them, I did want to kill them. But now that you asked me to kill them, I won't do it. Hearing this, Keichu Subaru was confused and asked, Why is that? Why? There's no reason. I don't know what you're planning, but you're always scheming against me. If I kill them, you might come up with some bad idea. Dustless Subaru explained softly, and then he said, Anyway, if you want me to kill them, then they have to live. If you want me to go east, then I have to go west. You're really? Kaiwa Subaru's face darkened. He didn't expect Dustless Subaru to be so cautious. Humph. If you don't do it, then I'll force you. Don't think I'm afraid of you. I won't even blink if you kill me. After countless reincarnations, Kaiwa Subaru was numb. Death was nothing to him. As long as he could trick Dustless Subaru once, he wouldn't mind even if he had to reincarnate 10 times. Dustless Subaru had killed him many times in the past reincarnations. Kaiwa Subaru was angry with Dustless. Even if Dustless didn't trouble him, Kaiwa Subaru would never let Dustless go. Hey, I say, you bunch of idiots. How dare you mock Lady Amelia? Are you tired of living? Kaiwa Subaru glared at Julius and the others without any fear. Anyway, he had nothing to lose. He didn't care if he angered these people and got himself killed. As long as he saw dustless Subaru being beaten up, he would be satisfied even if he was killed once. After all, he could be resurrected. After all, Kaiwa Subaru had been defeated by dustless countless times, and he hadn't made a comeback yet. Well. There are more and more arrogant guys these days. Julius's eyes were gloomy. Dustless Subaru was riding on his head. After all, Dustless had shown his strength just now. Even if he tried his best, he wouldn't be able to defeat him. But who was Kaiwa Subaru? How dare he provoke him? Did he really think that he was made of mud and could step on him whenever he wanted to? Is this idiot trying to make enemies for me? Dustless Subaru immediately understood Kaiwa Subaru's intention. He smiled and didn't say anything, waiting for this guy to make a fool of himself. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-23. So you're really weak. Since he was taller than Fianna, Dustless was looking down at her. Coupled with his contemptuous tone, he was like a frivolous young master. His tone was full of contempt and disdain. You don't get carried away. Hearing Dustless's words, Fianna's pretty face turned deep red. She was extremely embarrassed. Her sneak attack had failed and she was caught alive. Especially when Alice, the leader of the Night Order, was watching silently from the side. Fianna had no way to defend herself. "Sigh, you're really weak." Dustless sighed again. "You stinking brat." The veins on Fianna's forehead bulged. "I know I'm weak, but do you have to say it twice? My ears aren't deaf. Alice, you saw it too. This chick didn't try to assassinate me. How should I deal with her?" Dustless looked at Alice, and then looked at Fianna with deep meaning. His expression was full of schadenfreude. Of course it's a big problem. Alice also looked at Fianna with ridicule. She deliberately cleared her throat. "In a big way, this is nonsense. I just wanted to test this guy's strength." Without giving Alice a chance to speak, Fianna hurriedly said, "After all, participating in the Elven Sword Dance Festival requires great strength. I just wanted to test this guy's strength." "You tested my strength?" Hearing this, Dustless couldn't help but laugh. He felt that this was the most ridiculous joke. He asked again, "Then Miss Fianna, what did you test?" Fianna was speechless at Dustless's question. She thought for a while, and then smiled. "You're very strong. I'm very satisfied with your strength, so I decided to join your team." This sudden change startled not only Claire and the other two girls, but also Dustless. He looked at Fianna with a slightly stunned expression. He could clearly see traces of nervousness in her eyes. Looks like this guy also joined on a whim. What's his motive? Dustless frowned slightly. While he was lost in his reverie, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his waist. "Are you crazy? Why did you pinch me?" Unhappily glaring at Claire, Dustless was about to reprimand her when he saw Linslet and Alice looking at him with dissatisfaction. That resentful gaze was clearly saying, "You went out to attract bees and butterflies again. What does it have to do with me?" This woman obviously joined suddenly. "What does it have to do with me?" Dustless didn't know whether to laugh or cry. There was nothing between him and Fianna. Moreover, this woman hated him greatly because of Godfengzhao. She was using all sorts of methods to take revenge on him. Now that she had suddenly joined in, there was definitely a problem. However, at this moment, Dustless suddenly felt a soft body. Her entire body was soft and emitted a strong fragrance. Dustless subconsciously pinched her. Moan. A soft moan suddenly sounded. Dustless was startled. He opened his eyes wide and looked over. The figure that had thrown herself into his arms was Fianna. "Don't touch me." Fianna looked at Dustless affectionately. She was bashful. Her face was deep red, and her watery eyes were like silk. When they looked at each other, they would feel an electric shock and numbness. "What do you want?" "Let me tell you, I'm still a decent man. You'd better not act rashly." Dustless moved his lips. This girl called Fianna hated him. Now that she had thrown herself into his arms, she must be up to something. Dustless was silent for a moment. Soon after, he opened his mouth and said, "Miss Fianna, you." "Dustless, you bastard. You actually did it with a strange girl in public. You pervert." Alice's face was red. She had an expression that said, "I can see through you." Soon after, she left angrily. Carol, let's go. It seems like my good intentions were treated as ill intent." Linslet also looked at Dustless unhappily and left angrily. As for Claire, she even lashed out with her whip. She even cursed, pervert, charcoal. This girl is very smart. She knows that these three women are jealous, so she purposely made eyes at me. She even joined this team to take revenge on me for bullying God Feng Zhao. Dustless rarely looked at Fianna. He couldn't help but ask, "You're already a beauty. Why are you asking for trouble for a mere trash? If you leave now, I can pretend that nothing happened." What nonsense are you talking about? What mere trash? I joined your team completely, because I looked up to your figure. I was mesmerized the moment I saw you. Fianna playfully blinked her eyes. Her gaze was incomparably affectionate. She almost fell into Dustless's arms. Even Dustless could feel the heavy sphere. With such an ambiguous posture, not to mention the jealous Claire, even ordinary people would think that the two had a secret relationship. "You don't believe me, do you?" Dustless looked at Claire. Seeing her angry expression, Dustless felt even more innocent. "Turn into charcoal." Claire disdained to talk nonsense with Dustless. The long whip in her hand lashed out with flames. It seemed that she really wanted to turn Dustless into charcoal. "I can only knock you out temporarily." With a leap, Dustless appeared behind Claire without any warning, as if he had traveled through space. Then, with a light chop, he knocked her out and placed her on the sofa. "Little girl, I'll make you regret this." After covering Claire with a blanket to prevent her from catching a cold, Dustless walked over with a dark face. He had always been the one who tricked others. Now that he had been tricked by Fianna, his mood was extremely bad. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-24. Everyone thought that the matter had come to an end, but it was not. Not long after Kayatsuka left the palace, he was surrounded by a large group of knights. Hey, what do you want? Are you trying to rebel? Don't forget that I am Emilia's servant. If you dare to hit me, Emilia will not let you go. Kayatsuka panicked when he saw the knights glaring at him. He was trying to make trouble for Dustless, not himself. To put it bluntly, Kayatsuka's previous actions were to make trouble for Dustless, but these cowardly knights did not seem to have the guts to make trouble for Dustless. "Do you think I am easy to bully?" Kayatsuka guessed in his heart. He looked up at Julius and asked, Do you dare to fight me? Your crime is punishable by death, but since you are Emilia's servant, let's have a duel with wooden swords. How about that?" When Julius said this, his face was full of mockery and disdain. He did not even try to hide the disdain and contempt in his eyes. "Do you think I don't dare?" Kayatsuka was angry. If he chickened out at this time, not only would Emilia look down on him, but he would also look down on himself first. "I agree." Bang. Just as Katsuki Subaru was about to agree to Julius's request, a black shadow suddenly flashed and gently kicked Katsuki Subaru away. Boom. Kayatsuka's body crashed into the wall, and the solid wall cracked. "Who the hell did this? How dare you sneak attack me? Is it you knights?" Kayatsuka roared angrily. His voice was a little sharp because of anger. "I did it." "Why? Do you want to beat me?" Dustless lazily flashed in front of Kayatsuka and narrowed his eyes. "If you don't like me, or even want to beat me up, I welcome you with open arms." It's a small world. Let's wait and see." Kayatsuka suddenly chickened out. He glared at Dustless fiercely and finally fell silent. After several rounds of reincarnation of death, Kayatsuka knew how powerful Dustless was. He could not even defeat Julius, let alone Dustless. Even if he was angry, he had to bow his head and admit defeat. "What do you mean? It is very rude to disturb a duel between me and someone else." Julius frowned and looked at Wuxian. His face was full of hostility. He insulted all of us. We must make this guy pay the price. I'm not interested in your grudges. Even if this kid is dead or alive, it has nothing to do with me. But Dustless paused for a while and then said helplessly, "This kid is in Amelia's camp after all. You beat him up and made him lose control of his bladder and bladder. Amelia is the one who lost face." Dustless's meaning was self-evident. Everyone could understand what he meant. After all, Kayatsuka was beaten up, and as the host, Amelia must be disgraced as well. You have to look at the owner before beating a dog. I can't turn a blind eye. Dustless's tone was lazy, but Julius and the others' faces changed slightly. His words were full of warning. You have to look at the owner before beating a dog? Kayatsuka's face darkened. The dog Dustless was talking about was him. He thought angrily. He is scolding me in another way. If you want to continue to challenge him, how about this? Dustless saw that Julius was persistent, so he stood in front of him and said indifferently, "You can fight with me. I will stand still. If you can defeat me within 3 moves, I will apologize. How about that? And you can do whatever you want with me." Stand still. Julius and the others were stunned when they heard that. The so-called standing still meant that they did not take any counterattack and just stood there to be attacked by Julius. Julius' face turned ashen when he came back to his senses. He felt that he had been looked down upon. This was blatant disdain and contempt. The flames that had accumulated in his heart exploded. Do you think that you can defeat me by standing still? No, this needs to be corrected. Dustless shook his head and said calmly, "People like you are not qualified to fight with me, but you have to challenge Kayatsuka. I can only reluctantly stand up and let you have 3 moves." To be honest, Dustless did not intend to duel with Julius. This guy was too weak, but he had to challenge Kayatsuka. No matter what, he was on Amelia's side. If he lost, it would be a disgrace to his master. I don't mean to look down on you. Dustless found that everyone in the Knight Regiment was looking at him angrily. The fire in their eyes was enough to melt the city wall. He said indifferently, "I am just stating a fact. It is not too late to turn back now. At least you didn't lose, and it won't be so embarrassing." However, Dustless's words were fine. The moment he finished speaking, Julius agreed immediately. He was still alive. If he lowered his head now, he would never be able to raise his head again. Stand still. Is this guy going to be killed now? Everyone looked at Dustless mockingly. It was like an adult fighting with a child. If the adult stood still and let the child hit him, he could easily be killed. He arrogant guy. You better be killed by Julius. Then no one can stop me. Kayatsuka was very excited. He did not have the slightest gratitude. When Dustless said, "Look at the master before beating the dog," Kayatsuka wanted to swallow Dustless alive. If he was killed, Kayatsuka would definitely hold a party to celebrate. He believed that with his own ability, he could also make Amelia a king. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-25. Kaiwa Subaru's heart was full of joy. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people and the situation wasn't suitable, he might have jumped up and clapped his hands. These days he had been oppressed by Dustless, but he couldn't fight back. It was extremely difficult for him, as if he was walking on thin ice. This guy is too arrogant. He actually stood still and let Julius attack him. Does he think he is invincible? Kaiwa Subaru muttered to himself. After several reincarnations, he had some understanding of Julius's strength. He was very powerful. He believed that if Dustless stood still and didn't fight back, he would definitely be beaten up badly. I'll take Amelia with me to see how miserable you are after being beaten up. Who told you to show off? Kaiwa Subaru calculated in his heart, and a smug smile appeared on his face. In the huge martial arts field, the surrounding audience shouted passionately and cheered for Julius. Their voices were so loud that the ears of those who were 100 meters away were numb. In the center of the field, Julius held a sharp sword. His eyes were like torches. Almost all the knights were circling around him. He was as dazzling as the stars around the moon, as if the whole world revolved around him. As for Dustless, he was abandoned. Even if someone looked at him a few times, their face was full of ridicule. What nonsense! An angry voice could be heard from the spectators' seats. Yes, Dustless is too much of a troublemaker. Kaiwa Subaru immediately nodded. As a traveler from another world, he was also a wily old fox. He had studied the way of picking up girls very deeply. When a girl was angry about something, he would definitely speak ill of the other party with her. I'm talking about Julius. Amelia glanced at Kaiwa Subaru angrily and said indignantly, Dustless is bare-handed, but he is using the sword that he is best at. Even if he wins, it is an unfair victory. So you are fighting for Dustless? Kaiwa Subaru was very depressed, as if he had eaten a fly. His expression was very interesting. He had thought that he would be able to have a good time criticizing Dustless with Amelia, but who would have thought that she would be complaining about Julius? Cough, cough, cough. Amelia, there's something you might not know. It was Dustless who requested to fight Julius with his bare hands. It has nothing to do with Julius. Keiichi Subaru explained and added, Dustless is too arrogant. If he loses Amelia, you will lose all your face. You've misunderstood. Glancing coldly at Keitsuki Subaru, Amelia said in a serious tone, I'm actually not that interested in the throne, especially in the previous selection. I can already see that everyone is rejecting me, even disgusted. I'm afraid that even if I take the throne, those people will only pretend to obey me but secretly oppose me. Soon after, Amelia gave a self-mocking smile that was filled with endless bitterness and bleakness. After which she seemed to have thought of something and said with happiness, But Dustless didn't hate me because of this, he even stood up for me. Of course I don't want him to get hurt. It would have been better if she didn't say anything. The moment she finished speaking, Keiichi Subaru's face suddenly looked constipated. She muttered in her heart, I also support you, but why don't I see you care about me? Are you saying that Dustless is too handsome, and has the aura to attract the female lead? Keiichi Subaru was speechless. She kept cursing Dustless in her heart to vent her displeasure. When she saw Amelia's happy smile, she finally realized that her role as the main character had been snatched away. Bring it on. Don't waste my time. On the other side, Dustless's fingers were twitching, and he looked impatient. I hope you can still be so calm later. Julius squeezed out a smile that was uglier than crying. He stared at Dustless fiercely, holding his sword with one hand. Even though his body didn't move, an invincible aura had faintly rushed into the sky. This kid is finished. Yes, who does he think Julius is? How dare he humiliate him like this? He is destined to pay the price. Let's see this kid get split into several halves. His opponent is Julius, and he still dares to fight with his bare hands. Who does he think he is? Even the sword saint of the Astria family is not as arrogant as him. Does he think he is made of iron, and can withstand the attack of Julius? Some knights who were very optimistic about Julius were full of ridicule. They looked at Dustless with disdain, full of ridicule and contempt. In their opinion, Dustless was doomed, and there was no way to save the situation. However, only one person remained cautious. He always felt that Julius wouldn't win so easily. This person was Reinhardt. He had almost had a conflict with Dustless before, so he knew him quite well. In his impression, Dustless was not the kind of person who liked to shoot without thinking. His calmness obviously didn't seem to be an act. Swish, swish, swish. At the same time, Julius made his move. His body turned into a gust of wind and pounced on Dustless as fast as lightning. In the blink of an eye, he crossed layers of space and arrived in front of Dustless. And the blade that radiated a cold light pierced Dustless's abdomen. He was killed in seconds? He's so weak. This guy is indeed a vase. Such a useless piece of trash dares to humiliate us? Are you kidding me? I really don't understand how such a weak person dares to stand up for others. Where did he get the courage? Seeing how Dustless couldn't withstand a single blow, the spectating knights couldn't help but sneer. This touch doesn't feel right. Why does it feel like he has slashed the air? I don't feel anything at all. On the other hand, Julius, who was close to Dustless, looked puzzled. The moment he lifted his head, Dustless came into view and suddenly laughed. P.S. 3,000 fresh flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-26. A shameless person is invincible in the world, but a shameless tree will definitely die. In the past, Fianna didn't understand the meaning of this sentence. Now she finally understood its true meaning. She suddenly realized that this sentence was a perfect match for Dustless. After living for more than 10 years, Fianna had seen all kinds of weirdos, but it was her first time encountering an invincible existence like Dustless. You think I'm shameless? That's right, I'm shameless. Dustless chuckled and said bluntly, I don't know if you've heard of the saying, good people don't live long, bad people live for 1,000 years. I just want to live forever, so being a bad person suits me. Fianna was speechless. Dustless had already said so. What else did she have to refute? After all, he admitted that he was shameless and didn't care about integrity. Don't wear down my patience. I'll increase it in a bit. Dustless stared at Fianna's naked body without restraint. His gaze swept around with deep meaning. He rubbed his chin and muttered to himself, it's just a kiss on the cheek. Am I too kind? After thinking for a while he said, seems like it's better to choose somewhere else, such as, peck. At this moment, Dustless suddenly felt something peck on the right side of his face. He turned his head and saw Fianna with a face full of shame and indignation. You're fast enough. I didn't even have time to react. Dustless's face was full of depression. Soon after, he said with a very bitter tone, seems like you've been eyeing me covetously. Otherwise, why are you so familiar with it? When you dream, do you often fantasize about me? Hearing this, Fianna almost fainted from anger. This stinking brat didn't play by the rules at all. In this world, if there was a shameless selection competition, Dustless could definitely take the top 3 spots. Looking at how hesitant you are, that's most likely the case. Actually, all you have to do is say something. After all, you're a princess, so it's not a bad idea for me to throw myself at you. Actually, living off a woman suits me quite well. Dustless stared at the furious Fianna and continued to tease her. Anyway, I'll just suffer a little. You still feel wronged. Fianna's eyes widened. This bastard clearly profited from taking advantage of me. And now he's saying that I'm wronged. His skin must be thicker than the city walls. Calm down, calm down. I must be calm. I can't lose my composure and argue with a scumbag. Fianna bit her thin lips. The sharp pain cleared her mind. She took a few deep breaths and asked calmly, I've kissed you. Can we go now? Not yet. Dustless shook his head and said expressionlessly, I asked you to kiss my left cheek, but you sneakily attacked my right cheek. What you're doing is clearly against the rules. Although you can avoid the death penalty, you can't escape punishment. Now your punishment is to massage my shoulders and legs. After it's done, you can have a French kiss with me, and then I'll let you go. Let's just die together. Fianna didn't say anything else. She directly picked up the fruit knife on the table and pounced. I really hate that brat, Godfengzao. Dustless's words were filled with endless magic. The pouncing Fianna's body suddenly stiffened. What do you mean? Fianna frowned and looked coldly at Dustless. She asked suspiciously, why do I feel like there's more to your words? If you have something to say, just say it. Don't hide it. Perhaps she was numb from Dustless's attacks, but Fianna didn't have the demeanor of a princess anymore. If you want me to let you go, it's actually very simple. Dustless lay on the sofa and said lazily, as long as you promise me that you'll break off your relationship with Godfengzao and never come into contact with him again, I'll let you go. I don't need you to massage my shoulders and legs, and you don't need to kiss me. How about that? Hearing this, Fianna felt frustrated. She asked angrily, Could it be that you teased me like that just to take revenge on Godfengzhao? Of course. Don't tell me you think you're so beautiful that I can't extricate myself from it. Dustless turned his head and glanced at Fianna with disdain. He said uninterestedly, "Don't get too carried away. Although you're pretty good-looking, I'm already immune to beautiful women." After living for a few hundred years, Dustless had seen all kinds of beautiful women. Although Fianna was pretty good, it wasn't enough to make Dustless unable to walk. Teasing her like that before was just to disgust Godfengzhao. Dustless couldn't help but daydream. When Godfengzhao found out that his close friend was teased by Dustless, and their relationship was like that of lovers, would he fly into a rage? How about it? What's your choice? Princess Fianna. Dustless locked onto Fianna, who was in a dilemma, and gently persuaded. People always change. That Godfengzhao has already been tricked into a lunatic by me. So for your future happiness, I advise you to break off your relationship with him. Break off my relationship with him, and then be entangled with you? Dream on. Fianna sneered disdainfully. Really, you think too highly of yourself. Dustless sighed. He really just wanted to tease Fianna. He didn't have any other intentions. He just wanted her to give up on Godfengzhao. He didn't expect her to be so tactless. So you're saying that you want to take advantage of me? Dustless had a strange look on his face. He teased again. Come on, I'll treat it as if you took advantage of me for a night. Anyway, I won't lose anything. F***CKU. Fianna was furious. She almost couldn't hold back her vulgarities. I refuse your conditions. You want me to break off my relationship with Godfengzhao? Dream on. As soon as she finished speaking, Fianna threw caution to the wind and suddenly pounced over. Under Dustless's shocked gaze, this princess really turned into a female pervert and covered his mouth. Moreover, that little fragrant tongue also unscrupulously probed into Dustless's mouth. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. Chapter 22-27. It was not difficult to see that this powerful attack was also covered with a powerful magic attack. Once Dustless was hit, it might cause secondary damage. If he was not careful, he would be burned alive. After all, Julius was known as the most excellent knight. This resounding nickname was not given casually. Whether it was magic or swordsmanship, it was not something that ordinary people could estimate. In terms of swordsmanship, only Reinhardt could match him. TSK, this kid is really finished. He doesn't know how to spell the word death. Looking at the whole kingdom, besides Reinhardt, who else can compete with Julius head-on? If this guy Dustless could work hard and not be so arrogant, maybe he could surpass Reinhardt and Julius in the future. Unfortunately, he is going to die now. Some knights sighed and cherished the talent. After all, in their opinion, Dustless's talent was unparalleled, and he seemed to have amazing attainments in healing magic. Such a person would definitely be able to make a name for himself in the future. Unfortunately, he had provoked someone he would never dare to provoke in his life. So what? There are many geniuses, but how many can stand at the top? This kid is arrogant and insulted our spirit of chivalry. He deserves to be killed. There were also knights who expressed disdain for Dustless. In their opinion, a rampant person like Dustless deserved to die. There was no mercy at all. Some people even looked at Dustless as if they were looking at a corpse. Ha 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 ha, well done. Seeing this scene, Kai Yuezue laughed heartily for the first time. However, Amelia was beside him, so he was too embarrassed to laugh out loud. He could only hold it in. His expression was extremely strange, and he looked like he was enduring a lot of pain. Dustless Cohen. Amelia clenched her fists. Julius's sword was too terrifying. Even from dozens of meters away, she could feel the mana in the atmosphere being sucked out and all of it rushing toward Julius. It was enough to see how heaven-defying the power of his sword was. Go to hell. Boom. 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 A terrifying halo erupted from the blade, and boundless flames surged out. Even the battlefield of the final battle was scorched black, and a strange smell filled the air. So strong. Dustless is definitely done for. Perceiving the horror of Julius's sword, everyone was horrified. Even a layman like Keiichi Subaru was stunned by this horrifying sword. Haha, he's definitely going to die. He's definitely going to die. Kaiyueru was overjoyed. If it weren't for the fact that Emilia was right beside her, she would have cheered. Being able to see Dustless being beaten was the best gift for Kaiwa Subaru. Being able to see Dustless die with his own eyes, even if he had to give up 10 years of his life. In his opinion, this was a good deal. Swish. Swish. Finally, under everyone's gaze, this terrifying sword pierced towards Dustless's head. Boom. 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 The moment the blade touched Dustless's head, it suddenly burst open, and an endless sea of fire erupted. The long sword in Julius's hand seemed to have sealed a large sea of fire. At this moment, all of it was released by him, and the endless fire was released. The space within a radius of dozens of meters was burned, and all living things were forbidden. Under this blazing flame, any living thing would die without a doubt. Damn it! Seeing that the sea of fire couldn't be contained and was still spreading, and even coming towards him, Julius's face changed greatly, and he quickly retreated. Boom. 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 Even so, the raging sea of fire still swallowed him up. Julius was still in a very sorry state. His whole body was black, and even the smell of charcoal filled the air. When Julius appeared in front of everyone again, he had been burned beyond recognition. His whole body was black, and his hair. No, at this moment, he had become bald. Damn it, did I use too much strength? Julius cursed angrily. Looking at the monstrous sea of fire, he took a deep breath and said, "This is one of my strongest moves. To be able to die under this move, you should be able to close your eyes in the netherworld. Dustless, right? I will remember you forever." In the endless sea of fire, there were only surging flames. Not to mention people. Even the air was burned to nothing. The sky was baked by the blazing flames, and the white-hot steam was clearly visible. Dustless. Emilia smiled sadly, and 2 lines of clear tears slowly fell from her pair of watery eyes. In this world, there were only 2 people who didn't look at her differently. One was Parker, and the other was Dustless. As for Keiichi Subaru, Emilia had automatically ignored her. Hahaha, dead, finally dead. This bastard is finally dead. God still cares for me. Keiichi Subaru was overjoyed. Dustless died so miserably that there wasn't even a corpse. It could be seen that he was burned to ashes while he was still alive. Idiot. This is trampling on the dignity of knights. Seeing that Dustless was dead, the group of knights laughed out loud, mocking Dustless for overestimating himself. Perhaps he had a chance to fight with Julius if he drew his sword, but he was so arrogant that he insisted on giving Julius 3 moves. In the end, he died without a complete corpse. I swear. At this moment, a cold and delicate voice resounded throughout the whole place. Everyone couldn't help but shiver. This voice was like the speech of the Grim Reaper. And it was an oath to the giant dragon. In this country, the giant dragon represented a special meaning, and so did the oath. If Dustless is dead, I won't let you have an easy time. Even if it means risking my life. The person who spoke was Emilia, who looked angry. P.S. 3,000 flowers plus updates, 3,000 rewards plus updates, 1,000 comments plus updates, 500 automatic subscriptions plus updates. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.